All right, it's 6:02, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. All board members are present. Next meeting for all of us is next Tuesday, the 28th. Next Tuesday is a regular board meeting, but we'll have a part of the board meeting that will be budget development. Public communication and correspondence. All right. Next on the agenda is the budget work session. We're going to meet with administration. The idea is we'll basically go through one department at a time, and we'll all have a chance to ask questions. Well, again, we're going through the rationale sheets. I just want to touch on first.
Yeah, I just want to go over some of the things that you have in front of you. Per the request of the last meeting, you have a copy of the budget development calendar to put in your binder. This could go in the other section or at the front just so you won't read what you have for meetings. And then also a description of all of the account codes for the budget. So you have that as well. Put that in the other section if you like. And then this purple sheet, periwinkle if you will, is gives you some updates since our last meeting on the 14th, because there were some changes to the proposed operating budget based on some contractual figures that we received. So I'd like to go over that quickly with you before you have questions for the administrative groups here. Look at the bottom of that page that says changes to the proposed budget since 10/14/25. Is $32,652. So that's based on our retirements. They had until October 15th to put in for their separation request. You can see that that's actually a decrease of $1,211 in the budget. And then we received our track changes, which is our teachers submitting those when they are forecasting a track change on the salary scale for next year. That's $760. The bigger number is we received our property and liability insurance, which is showing a $33,103 increase. So based on all of those figures, the total increase to the proposed budget since 10/14 is $32,652. So if you look there, that brings us to an operating budget of 6.2%, a total budget of 5.12% increase. Still below the default. The default's at 6.5% for the operating budget increase, and the total budget for the default is 5.4% increase for the total budget for the default. So I just want to highlight those changes because those came in.
I have a question.
Within the past week. Yes.
Since we're contractually obligated in the property liability, shouldn't that increase the default as well?
It did.
Oh, I don't see it here.
Oh, it doesn't?
No,
Okay.
it doesn't, because your property and liability insurance, you just have to find it somewhere else. In the budget. It's not part of the default budget.
Okay.
But the retirements and track change.
The retirement would, so, we'd be changing the default budget by $400.
But they're, I mean, not technically the exact same.
Correct.
Okay.
Do you know about the increase in property liability? Does this have come an impact because of the new policy regarding the pet that the therapist or the psychologist has in the classroom or in the office?
No, this is based on our claims.
Oh, based on your claims?
Yep. So our rate increases are based on claims.
Do you happen to know how much that addition of the, I can't remember what it's called.
Therapy dogs.
Therapy dog?
No, not at all.
You didn't affect it much?
Nope, not at all. Plus, that's not even in place yet for them to give us our rates, and that wouldn't change our rates. It would fall under our current liability, so there isn't any increase, and we would have to increase our coverage because of the therapy dog.
Okay.
So that wouldn't change our rates. Now, if there was a claim because of the therapy dog or the handler, that potentially could, but we're not even there yet. The board hasn't even passed the policy yet for therapy dogs in the school.
This is a contract, Randy mentioned contract, this was a contracted already? How much longer left on the contract with the provider for this policy?
For Primex,
It's an annual,
It's an annual.
renewal.
So, I guess what I'm not clear about is property liability insurance up 33 from what we had originally.
yes.
Where's that in the budget?
That's in the 2620 function, in the 500 purchase technical services account.
But Sean, to your question, we had not adjusted the detailed budget sheets in here at this point.
I'm just trying to get a feel for like, what is a $30,000 increase as far as like percentage of what are we paying? Property liability insurance.
Well, you said it was based on our claims, so did you have a lot of claims last year?
Anticipated claims and claims, yes.
And it's just damage to things weather related or vandalism?
Yes, it's just with any insurance, the more claims you have, your rates go up.
Gotcha.
So right now, we have in the proposed budget for insurance, it's 94,000. And it's going to 100.
And Primex is like the biggest name around here, right? Municipalities use it, the schools
Yeah, it's
use
a
it,
pool-
there's not much
pool
other
insurance.
options.
I'm not sure if both parts are going to do a lot of Primex. I would think so.
The only other follow-up is, how does that compare to other districts our size? And should we as a board be concerned about what our liability, our claims are? That's an issue.
So I don't know what the other districts are sized yet, because it's all based on individual claims. So you could have a district smaller than us, if they have more claims, their rates are gonna go up more. You could have a district larger than us, and if they don't have a lot of claims, their rates aren't gonna go up as much. We currently are paying $94,224, and we're going to $127,327.
That's a big percentage.
Yeah.
So as I said earlier, we have not made these changes to the detailed budget sheets at this point, because there could be some other changes, so we'll update those budget sheets, the detailed budget sheets in the summary as potential other changes happen, so we're not providing you a packet of detailed budget sheets and summary every time we make a change, so along the way, we'll update those to reflect these changes. The big one there will be our health insurance, which usually comes out beginning of November.
Could you give us an example of some of the claims? I mean, were there like 10, 20? Were they all major? Were they minor?
I don't know that number off the top of my head, Ann. It's the number of claims, but, property claims could be damaged due to storms that we can't recoup through monies that might come through FEMA. Some of the claims you might have in mind, Debbie?
It could be a liability claim if someone claims that we didn't, if a student got hurt and they claim that we didn't do something to protect the student at the time. There could be a liability claim. There could be any one number of those types of claims. So
Like a slip and fall,
Pardon?
like a slip and fall on the ice?
Well, that would, if it's our employee, that falls under workers' compensation. But if we had someone coming to the building and we didn't see them to the parking lot and they slipped and fell, that would come against us.
All right, that was all the updates. So next up is we're going to meet with the administrators. Are they coming to the table?
Yeah, come right here. It's,
Okay. And I guess I haven't heard any needs to be first, so I'm just inclined to go by the binder. So my binder says the tech proposed budget terms.
Yes.
I didn't know if we all had the same order.
They're all the same
All
order.
right.
So for advisory budget committee members, this is Brandon Patterson, he's our Director of Information Technology.
So, I guess if there's anything you want to highlight, other, and then if not, or after you're done highlighting, just ask questions.
Nothing specifically. I think the biggest thing I can say is I'm down pretty significantly in professional services due to the access point licenses and contracts for wireless that we went through last year. Other than that, it's pretty much same as it was last year with a couple of increases due to software increases.
So, all right, first question.
Yep.
What you're talking about for the decrease, that's like the third row down, I think. Purchase professional services. I only see like a couple of years, down, to the top, to the down. The decrease this year, is that something we would think would be consistent for future years, or are we looking at, like, I don't know if these are, you know, biannual licenses where like one year we're checking
So last year with the access point licenses, we went with a 5-year license because it saved, if I remember correctly, somewhere around $12,000 over the 5 years if we bought it in a 5-year contract. So that puts us out to, that puts the licensing out to the end of life of the access points.
But that's a consistent amount each year, right?
That was a one-time.
Oh,
Yeah. And when we get the new access points, they'll probably come with, the way Extreme does their stuff, they'll come with a 3-year license with it, so that gets us another 3 years on top of that, and then we have to worry about the licensing again.
What is R&I?
Repair needs.
So those costs have gone down significantly from what you budgeted for this year.
We do
So,
that specifically because of looking at the actuals.
yeah, the actuals compared to what was budgeted and then readjusted your proposed.
One increase I do have is for the supplies, and the justification behind that was we've been running into issues, we're buying computers, the computers have a different display port output than all of our old monitors have. So now we have to buy hardware to adapt the new computers to the old monitors. So I upped the supplies to buy new monitors as they fail throughout the year. I think that was my biggest increase.
In your new computer tech line up $9,000, that's, see, that's based on what you have in the CIP. And this list of the items that are there.
Sean?
So, the new VHS interactive PCs, what's the difference between interactive PCs and those interactive boards, smart boards or something that we bought with, pandemic?
The interactive boards are the units that, like, they're built into the display,
Yeah.
but they have a really basic Android operating system on the back end of them that allows them to do screen sharing, some classroom management software, that's pretty much it.
That's why we have like a yes now, right?
Yeah.
We have like, we bought 100 or something,
Yep.
right? Something like that.
That's awesome.
The interactive PC portion of that is a wall-mounted Windows-based computer that basically uses the interactive display as a touchscreen monitor. That gives them the functionality to run anything on Windows. They can't run Windows.
How many of these do we have?
There's basically one per interactive display in the entire district. The ones for the high school happen to be the oldest ones.
So are we gonna do this, like, are we gonna see this every year, essentially? We'll want to replace, I'm just asking. Right?
As the refresh cycle comes up for building, we try to stage each building a different year so that it's not.
Can I follow up on your question? I'm not sure I understand. This interactive, new VHS interactive PCs, $7,000. Is that a replacement or is it actually new installation?
That is a replacement of what is existing.
Okay.
How many are being replaced?
Roughly 30.
So $7,000 for 30.
It's, we planned in the CIP for 7,000, but that wasn't going to cut it, so I put in the additional 2,000 of non-CIP funds to bring it up to, the 30 number at $300 a piece. And they're not brand new computers, they're 3 or 4 year old refurbished, ultra small form factor, HPs or Lenovo's, whatever the company set the best price at the time. With upgraded RAM and upgraded hard drives.
Thank you. Does that take care of everything the high school needs for that year, for those?
I believe so, yeah.
On there you have a grant proposal for 45. If you don't get that grant, or you're likely to get the grant, how does that impact your services? Can you do without those funds?
We are currently operating, it's hard to say, because part of that is, for example, the access control server, which runs great right up until it doesn't. And it's whether or not we can fix it or not, or if it just, whatever breaks requires a total replacement kind of thing. Debbie explained to me how we put that in, and quite frankly, I don't remember having it explained, because it is, or am I overcomplicating it?
The proposal, yeah, for 45,000 grant proposal. Is
Yeah. So, well, it was part of the whole amount that was coming in, so it's part of the access controls of 7,000 and the MVR of 38 is what he put in for. So we're just showing that that's what that is needed next year, but then we backed it out by the 45,000. So if we don't get the grant, then he's gonna have to determine if we do need the access controls in the NVR, we may have to look at the tech special revenue fund. We'd rather not look at the tech special revenue fund if we don't have to. But if we don't get the grant and need to replace those, then we would go to that tech special revenue fund.
I will say, if we do not get the grant, I will have to replace the access control server. Right now, if we try to go into a specific door and read the transactions or the badge swipes on that door, we hose the entire server. We have to physically unplug it and plug it back in. So right now, we're currently avoiding pressing that transactions down. So that will be a necessity. The NVRs seem to be fairly reliable. We did have a double drive failure on the BMS NVR last week that we had to buy hard drives for and rebuild the whole RAID array. So more things like that are going to happen, and that's like, can we get away with just replacing the drives, or do we have to replace the entire box? Depends on how it breaks.
And if I'm reading correctly, the fund that you're talking about is the one that's school technology that currently has 132,000?
No, the tech special revenue fund is a separate fund, it's not in the trust fund, but it's a separate fund that we put the P-card rebates into and the E-rate rebates into. So we use a lot of those funds for a lot of the technology stuff that we need, especially stuff that comes up and we don't have funds elsewhere.
But there's enough in there to cover the 45 for some reason. It doesn't.
There should be.
Okay.
Depends how much I use the P-card this year. Not me personally, but the district.
Okay. I have a question. With the leased technology, can you just kind of glaze over like what item, like what, can you characterize what kind of items we're leasing currently?
Absolutely, those are 100% our Chromebooks.
Okay.
Yep, our student Chromebooks.
Yep. And then for the admin library, if we add up all the schools, it's about $10,000. Can you help me better understand what kind of things contribute to the cost for the libraries?
Sure. It's not 100% the library. The fund, I believe, is just called admin library. But our nursing software comes out of that. We use the same nursing software throughout the entire district. So we take the total cost divided by the schools, and that's each of the admin library funds. As well as the library inventory software, Fall of Destiny. Missing one. Swiss, that was the third. There's three big ones. Yep.
Okay. What is Swiss?
Swiss is what we utilize to track any type of discipline referral to the office.
Okay. So like those three packages together compromise like 10 grand a year in expenses. Okay.
Other questions for Brandon?
I have one more. You might not answer this, it might have been before your time, but in looking at the lease technology, there's like a big jump from FY 25 actual to FY 26 budget. It's from 57,000 to 90,000.
That was, I think,
Because when I first looked at this and you had stated that the student Chromebooks, I was wondering if it was a decrease this year because of a lower enrollment. But then when I saw the one from the FY 25 actual, it's a no, there was some sort of surge and a massive need to replace them for FY 26.
I don't think the lease amount, like the number of Chromebooks, doesn't it vary depending on?
It does vary, yeah. So we have 700 one year, 300 one year, 250 1 year. And at one point, we were trying to go more than 3 years and not replace some of them. We found that didn't work well. And 1 year, we had very inexpensive Chromebooks that worked even worse.
Thank you.
So my logic is we seem to have settled on HP, education edition Chromebooks. They seem to work the best, best reliability. I try to plan on 20 spare devices, and every year, first, fifth, and ninth is replaced.
Other questions? Thank you. All right, next up we have the curriculum proposed budget.
So I'd like to introduce Beverly Hunter. She is our Director of Curriculum and Instruction, new to us this year. Been a pleasure working with her so far.
This is just one side.
It's a one-pager.
Anything you want to touch on? I don't know.
No, just the curriculum to support teachers in their professional learning and support our programs around literacy and instruction. Sorry. I can't be really loud. Okay, well, just, yeah. Who sticks in your chair that way? Yeah, the support professional learning department and
Can you touch on the electronic information curriculum? I see the note, but can you share a little bit? It says fund hub subscription, in lines, which is what you just done.
Yeah.
But what is fund hub?
That is the online access for both of those are for teacher resources or the other literacy program foundations.
Yes. So these are for teachers, not your electronic tools for students.
Right, so that budget line does include both of those types of resources.
Yeah.
But these are for the teacher access to those programs. And they were part of the library extension. Sorry, again, they were part of other budget lines last year.
Are these annual costs?
These will be annual costs, yes.
So we should see decreases in other budget lines from these two?
No.
Okay, so where were they?
So the Great Minds was because we were adopting that program last year, so it was never going adoption. But to continue to have online access to the program for those, for teachers, for continuing next year.
You also talk about frontline evaluation, management, and PE management. What does that mean to us?
No, that is the program that we use for our absent management for teachers. And we're into our professional development and track of that.
So it increased.
Yes.
You see that, that's based on the actual, so our actual for 25 was
Okay.
over $7,000, so it's reflecting what we spent in 25, plus we also anticipate a 6% increase.
Can you explain a little bit about what this electronic info is, this $1,020? We have it in the 2025 or 2026?
That is access to a program for a math program for leaders. So,
For who, I'm sorry?
for the curriculum lead of me. So I can support teachers and with their professional development and instruction.
Is that a one-time fee? Or
Was that regarding the question on line 33? Your question, the testing DW curriculum?
No, I was a little bit further down, so 2 from the bottom, there's that electronic info, that's what I was asking about.
Yeah, yeah, what is the testing curriculum that we started apparently this year?
Yep, that is the for our STAR testing platform for literacy and math, K-8.
Did we not have to purchase that in the
No,
past?
that's been in that before, but there's been an increase in the cost of that as well. And being prepared for an increase in the 6% increase. Because it was.
Because to be honest, it looks like for fiscal year 25, it's a 0.
Would have been a grant.
That I'm not sure, sorry.
I believe back in 25, that cost was coming out of data management curriculum. So there was a move, so we put it in testing district-wide. We also utilized, I believe, some grant funding to cover some of those subscriptions.
Some of that,
No longer
and,
exist.
yeah, and it was, some of it was also in the 1100 electronic information. It would be split out depending on what the component of the testing was. And it gets very difficult when you do it that way, so we're just trying to consolidate so we can capture the cost and maintain the record.
So right now, testing district-wide curriculum, is that just STAR? Or is there other tests?
The other program that we use is IXL, and that's also used as supported students as they go through their diagnostic and practice.
But that's
And
what we're saying.
That's an electronic, the one above. It's an electronic info,
In the 1100s.
yes.
What?
So
Somebody asked, how much do you spend on STAR testing? I'm gonna say $17,000.
correct, because part of the STAR test, it used to be Part of it was the actual testing that you give to students, which is why they have been put in the 1100s. And then the other portion of STAR is how you get the reports out, which is part of the curriculum. So it got very confusing trying to split it all, so that's why we just moved it to curriculum.
I'm afraid to ask this question, but I'm going to ask it of Debbie. Are there other situations like that where we split things out?
No.
All right, I think we should get away from it.
Yeah. It was always for, because I'd have to break out the bill to 3 different accounts. So, yeah.
So on top of the IXL from electronic info, what other things are in that?
There is IXL, Mystery Science, which is the elementary science curriculum. There is Learn A to Z, and there's Kids, which is all part of that same program. Again, support literacy as well. And those would be, Mystery Science would be teacher use, and REST Kids is for the teacher and for students.
I guess it's a philosophical question, but as far as like software goes that we provide in the district, is there a magic number or percentage that we want to have our teachers using? So for example, say we have something to pay for something, but it's down to 3 teachers. They love it, but like it's only $5 out of the entire district. Like, I assume whatever we're paying for, we have pretty good usage of.
Yes, and that would continue to be tracked, so something that I definitely want to look at, because that is going to be expensive, especially when you're adding on another $8,000 for those programs that we have this year. So looking at usage, student and staff is definitely going to be something that I'm looking at this year, so that we can make good decisions about what those costs actually entail, and is it giving us the benefits that we're looking.
I appreciate that, because we tried to get at that last year, and we got a list of all, if I remember, like all the different, it was student electronic supports, I don't know what it's called. Right, but it didn't get down to usage, so like to Sean's point, like, I'm glad those teachers may love it, but at what cost? I just think we're gonna have to really start to look at that, because we have to streamline it, so.
I think that's best for the district as well.
Right.
Especially seniors.
Can you just help me better understand the difference between curriculum adoption and curriculum development? Just because it's not my field of expertise.
Sure. A curriculum adoption would be when we're adopting a program by your written wisdom. So we have purchased up to this point 3/4 of the curriculum. And so that would be for next year, adding on the 4th module. Curriculum development would be professional learning for teachers.
Okay, does that help them like with their recertification and stuff like
Yeah,
that?
it could be in looking at best practices and again, continuing learning professional learning for teachers, so that we can increase their knowledge to help our students.
Right, and it's not the kind of stuff you can just find on YouTube. Okay.
So it's also, like you just correct me if I'm wrong, but it's also specific a lot of times to the curriculum, the fidelity of the curriculum itself. So we just adopted with wisdom. So we only had a new math program. So there's that ongoing piece to ensure fidelity to the curriculum, not just with the startup of it, but then are they staying true to it? Essentially. Right. So just to Jen's point, it's not just like getting their teacher certification. That's what I wanted to.
Oh, yeah. No, but I know people have to stay current in their field.
Right.
And, yeah.
It's not, I mean, I'm sure it is part of that, but it's usually tied to
right? To our adoption of directed resources like directed teaching support teachers to implement them.
Right, so if I may, if you're actually looking at the line items in the 2213 function, you're going to see two different lines that are curriculum development. One of them is this one that Bev's talking about, and this is what she controls to bring in speakers, to develop the curriculums, to help specific teachers maybe get together as a group and work through some of the curriculum. There's another line that's under the collective bargaining agreement that teachers get to access, which is $18,000. And that's if they want to go to a workshop for whatever, they can request that. So this one is specific to the curriculum that Bev's working on in the district. That other is specific to their recertification requests.
And just to be clear, that other would be in, like, I assume, the budget detail.
It's in the budget detail, but it's not really part of Bev's focus, so it's not included in her summary report.
I know you already covered this, but I'm so sorry, but it's electronic info curriculum, but I see that written twice. So there's like a $37,000 and a $1,000 one. Could you just speak to those again?
Right, so
Refresh my
this
memory.
is, the larger line item that's up above is, again, those programs that students and teachers use. And this would be, supporting leaders as a teacher leader for math program.
So if you look at the second set of numbers in the account number, where it says 1,100, that's specific to classroom use, that's regular education.
Okay,
And the 2213 is specific to curriculum development.
thank you.
And those are.
That's
in
part of that sheet that was
information.
handed out tonight. Yeah, breakdown of funded function, the account codes.
Back to the curriculum adoption, so the 10,000, I'm assuming is for Wit and Wisdom. What is the 5,000?
So that was earmarked last year, but the budget went off towards Wit and Wisdom, so that we kind of to keep it back in so that we can continue to get resources to support social studies and science.
Other questions? Thank you. Debbie, I have a real dumb question.
It's not a dumb question.
If we look at the curriculum proposed budget, it's the first year we've looked at the budget with software.
No?
So if I'm looking at the curriculum budget and I'm seeing the account notes, right off the bat, is that related to 5641 or 5642?
So if you're looking at the first line, the 564100018, the 15,000, the notes are pertaining to that amount.
The notes
So
are
the notes are
paying for
underneath the account number. Yeah. Yeah, it's, I don't know why it does it that way.
I don't remember.
Leasing fake
having that
space.
issue.
Yeah.
All right, next up is buildings and grounds. Steve's got what?
Yes.
Oh, no, 7.
Building grounds tends to be a large budget. So this is Steve Dalzell, who's our director of building and grounds.
Okay, before Steve starts, can we level set what we try to do with buildings and grounds? Meaning, I believe we always try to put $70,000. Am I like crazy? So my understanding is that we always want to make sure we're $70,000 that we're spending that money.
It's, I believe you're referring to the $100,000 that we do every year. That's part of our CIP, so we know that our withdrawals.
No, I'm talking about what we do for the default budget, because that matters to me when I looked at this. My understanding is if we were to cut these things out of the budget, we try, so that when we build a default budget, we're always budgeting for a certain amount. Correct?
Yes, which is the 100,000.
It's 100,000.
I don't know. She's talking about, if I understand, you're talking about the increase in the default for the buildings and grounds only, not the trust fund? Right?
Correct.
Yeah, she's talking about that increase that is done on the default side. Like for this at $72,000, almost close to the 70,000 that is expected to increase in a year.
So we focus on $100,000 of the operating budget for building improvements every year. You're showing $70,000 because there's savings in other areas. Your bottom line for building and grounds is $70,000 increase. However, that's because there's savings in other lines that drop us below that $100,000 for building improvements.
So,
Because you're using the buildings and improvements plan.
Because so the 100,000 comes out of building improvements based on the CIP, was budgeted $100,000, or have consistently budgeted $100,000. So when we build the default, year after year, we know that the operating budget is going to absorb $100,000 worth of building improvements every year.
so how much do we have in building improvements in
Um,
this budget?
$153,155 is what's in proposed. That's part of the CIP and then part of some other things that building administrators have requested that go in that function. In the default budget, we're carrying $113,600, which is what we have this year in the budget.
Okay. I just, for me, that's important to know because so 153,000 is buildings and improvements that is hitting the at this budget,
yes.
not CIP, not.
It's all part of the CIP, so $100,000 are based on projects that are in the CIP, the additional $53,000 in projects that are not on the CIP.
And if you look at the notes, it says CIP next to the item for the things that are on the CIP.
So there are items on there that aren't on the CIP, like bathroom renovations are on the CIP. So those add up to the
Taking out of trust or fund. That's what I'm trying to get at. I'm not saying the right words, and I apologize, but I'm trying to wrap my head around. So it's on the CIP, but we're not pulling money out of the 153,000.
So we are in some of them. If you look at the notes, let's look on page 6, for example. It has CIP replace fire alarm system, $25,000. There's also 6 sink cabinets for $4,000 and partition sink toilets for $30,000. But then I make a note that withdrawal of $25,000 from expendable trust. So we're identifying everything we're doing, but I'm subtracting out what we're taking. So the budget's not being impacted by the expendable amounts. Is that the answer?
No.
Sorry.
So, and maybe, so is the 153,000 the impact to the budget?
Yes.
So it has nothing to do, I understand the withdrawal from
Okay.
trust is here, but that's not part of, so that where you were, withdrawal from expendable trust on page 6, that's not part of that 153. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Correct.
Thank you. Sorry,
So if you look, this might, so if you look here, so see how it says 4 and 30, and then that's for the proposed, and then the 25 and 25.
I know that. What I was trying to get at is, well, to be blunt, if I wanted to not do some of these things right now, is it going to affect the impact on, like, the default in us moving forward? Yeah, I mean, that's, to make crystal clear, that's, wow.
I mean, a good example of that would be, hey, budget tight, we're not going to fund any of this building and ground stuff. We're going to use, we might have enough money in the trust fund to cover this stuff. I wouldn't necessarily want to do that. In theory, you could say that, right? But then if you have a default budget next year, you're going to have zero for building.
Correct. So I just needed to wrap my head around the total amount that, so, thank you.
Michelle's at places on the CIP itself, for building grounds, so I can flip to the section of CIPs.
Like the fire alarm.
And if you go to 26, 27, go down to the bottom, expendable trust withdrawals, $146,000. General fund budget's $100,000. So for those projects, we're taking $100,000 out of the general fund and $146,000 out of the trust fund. Right?
But I wanted to know the total. I know I keep saying the same thing, but I want to know the total amount because that's essentially $53,000 over what we typically budget. That's, thank you. So generally speaking, I don't want to spend more than what we expect for me, so. Convince me otherwise.
Steve, did you have anything you wanted to touch on before we just move to the questions? Okay. We're open for questions.
So it says towns increasing around 20%. Is it going to be 20% or is it going to be less or more?
That's a bit of a guess, to be honest with you. I mean, I figured out the numbers as close as I could, based on the numbers they sent to us, saying we could look at it somehow.
We did receive a letter from the town of Belmont talking about that increase.
But they didn't specify, they didn't say it was more than 20%, they said it's so much per cubic, so much for water, and it wasn't that quick, so I had to define it, and that's what I thought it was on 20%.
And we did receive invoices with an increase currently, and then got notice that we should expect another increase.
And the water, I'm assuming that's the same.
Water and sewer, yep.
What is sewer rent? Do you rent space in like a town sewer for school waste?
That's just how the handbook described it. So when you get your water bill, you're paying part of it for the water intake, and then what gets flushed out of your drains is also billed separately, and that's a sewer rent fee.
I'm assuming it's because we don't ship it from one place in Belmont, it continues on down toward the river, down through other towns, so we're sending it someplace, so we're renting the usage of the system. Like down 140 where we keep having that problem.
So what exactly is going?
It's like using of the system.
Usage fee.
Usage fee.
Right, but you said it goes into a river.
No, down along the river.
It goes to Franklin.
Like one of the down towards Franklin, the processing plant is in Franklin.
Penn is working on that new waste treatment plant down in Northfield.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually go in Merrimack.
No, it doesn't go with
We don't think so.
They kind of like.
That's what they tell us, it doesn't go in Merrimack.
No, but it follows in spots, it's right along the lake and the river.
And it's just called sewer rent.
Another one that jumped out at me was the heating tool for CES doubled.
That one needs for now.
The propane went down though, right?
Yeah.
So if we use, if we burn, if the equipment's running properly, we want to burn all the belts, that's the goal, is to keep them running and burn the belts. And then propane should go down and offset that. That's what happened last year.
So the pellets are up at 8,500, but the propane is down 5,000.
But it didn't technically offset it.
Didn't technically, no. But the
So,
more pellets we use, the more we get thermal burn money.
do we know what we're paying per gallon for our propane?
Offhand, I don't. But the propane, it will end in May, is when our contract is up.
Below $2 a gallon.
Yeah.
It's what?
Below $2 a gallon.
And so I take VES must be more on the pellet range, since theirs was decreased. That's what jumped out at me, is that VES heating went down and the other was doing that.
Yeah, we look at actuals on that, Tracy.
Are we considering pellets heating fuels?
So they're considered.
Okay. Because, yeah, I'm sorry, I just got confused, because
Oh,
there
they're
are
propane
propane
and
lines and then there's
Heating
heating
fuel
fuels.
to the house, we don't have oil,
Okay,
and then it would just be propane.
thank you.
So the propane for the high school increased 14,000 and the heating field went 4. It's like 18,000. Why is it so much money?
And there's very little on there other than heating, just the kitchen, that's it. Kitchen doesn't involve rents. And we also have a generator for gas, and all that, and it's going to it's open.
You had a significant decrease in telecommunications.
Yeah, we've been spending less. There were some other fees that we used to have to pay, and those are going down, so I reduced the telecommunications.
I'm just curious, it's small, but are we not paying for trash removal anymore? It's right under sewer rent, it says trash removal buildings, and we're not budgeting anything for it, so.
Well, I can explain that. We were budgeting for construction companies at one point. We had some construction project, I think it's what, and we haven't used it in the last 2 years, so we don't have to use it. So,
We're not flushing it down the sewer, right?
Well, but we did have fiscal year 25 actual of 17-14, but so you're not expecting to use it this year, so you don't budget for next year.
That's correct.
Got it. Just, I was fascinated by the fact that we're coming out trash removal to save
Oh, Canterbury's
$2,000.
still in it, that's just.
Okay,
We
great.
don't pay for trash. Oh, we came out of budget. Yeah, now we're going.
Okay.
Why not?
It's all about the town.
On page 5, where the contracted service grounds, is a decent savings, is that the grounds for like elementary school, is that contract, what is the savings for? Second line on top of page 5.
Yes, contracted services will be the rounds of the CES and ES. Well,
They've done a fantastic job.
they have.
It's going to increase that much?
But I think they're basing it off of FY25 actual. That would be high.
Yeah, just the actual is still 43,000. I mean, it's still under the actual, which, right, I'm just curious why.
We went back to the contracts, I had that same question, just to see what, making sure we're budgeting accurately there, it's $40,000 to maintain these properties.
In the beginning, it's listing contracted services. Can you, just because this is unique, can you allude to like what kind of services those are at the beginning? So first page, each one, contract services for the different schools, like what kind of services do we contract out?
So those are all basically for preventative maintenance for equipment in each school. So what we try to do is we do annual preventative maintenance on the majority of our pieces of equipment to help run the facility, keep up to date with making sure we're not ending up with unexpected repairs or damages. So those are all contracted services, basic preventative maintenance.
Okay.
Similar to like our fire alarm system and so forth.
Boiler.
All that stuff gets tested, it's really cost of the interview. Fire alarm testing, backflow prevention testing, all those are repeatable costs that we have every year.
Okay, thanks for explaining that.
So all the schools, and to follow up on that, all the schools are listed independently, and then the first one is just contracted services. Would that be for the SAU then?
Do we know what the contract services for BMS in FY25 was for? Significantly high. 91,000.
That elevator work that you had that done? Do you remember, Steve?
There was.
So as part of the contract, there was some elevator work that had to be done, it was very expensive.
Very good. Hopefully we don't have any more.
Is the grooming and grading with the infield mix for 24,000, is that the high school baseball field?
In softball.
And so, well, that's too great. Bill, yeah, Brown, Bill, and the whole infield, ready to play on for 4 teams and $6,000.
So it's two at Bryant, two at high school.
The high school and the high school softball. Just the whole field, that's the 4 fields. Yeah.
That was the $15,000 for repair and maintenance grounds. That is fertilizer.
Repair and maintenance, the truck breaks down, the tractor breaks down, equipment breaks down. We pretty much spend that every year. The truck, we probably got 5,000 to 6,000 repairs and that, it's already sold. It just needs them.
What rear gauge do you replace?
What's that?
What rear gauge?
That knee, as we drive on that gate is broken. So it makes it very hard to walk, and it's just need to be replaced.
So not to keep beating the same thing, the grooming and grading with the infield mix, how often do we do that? Because that almost is the amount of the increase. Is that something we just do every couple of years? Or?
We've never done it since I've been here 3 years, so.
And the existing baseball field is one of the ones on the list?
They're very low, brought back. We can't do that, we're not. It's a great thing to do nice work. As the work feels really long.
I'm sorry, it took me a while to find it, 1.627 per gallon for propane.
So I just have to know, reducing basketball height,
Oh, my elementary school, if you see the kids trying to play basketball, it's fun. The baskets, regulation height basket, kids at the school, and they can't play on it. They throw it, it's halfway up to the basket, and we're trying to make it so they can play basketball.
$3,000.
The one hole is bent, they need to replace.
So you replace the whole.
It has to
They go off, it's one that, yeah.
concrete, everything, but the whole
It's all 9 yards.
We check out Walmart. I'm kidding.
Tracy,
Okay.
do the basketball hoops adjust about down?
At downtown, I'm not sure.
I'm all for lowering the hoops at the elementary school level. My only concern is the teenagers showing up to have their dunk contest on the elementary school.
Beating the snow down.
And how long they'll last.
Like, that is a valid concern. The repair and maintenance is going to go up as well. I mean, I agree. Anybody that's coached elementary kids, not teaching good habits, you have the hoops.
But you can't get them out of the school. You can't. But then I know that one moved up a long time ago.
Yeah, I'm just worried about the maintenance.
You'll see the adjustable hoops are documented. Not sure.
Are you familiar with that? The ones at the park that went
No,
up
I
and
know
down?
initially they were adjustable. Do you know that, Sean, downtown?
I thought they were, but I couldn't. I was just curious if the town of Belmont had any trouble with their hoops, because if they're adjustable, it might give us a read on where.
I can ask, but we don't start meetings on that.
Different question. Is there any consideration to increasing are contracted services for grounds to the middle high school.
Could you repeat the question? Could you repeat the question?
We have contracted services for grounds, which we've already talked about. That's for the elementary school, the 2 elementary schools. I'm curious if we're considering doing that for the middle and high school as a potential cost savings, I'd say.
I don't think it'll be a cost savings, but
The only cost savings would be if you reduce the 2 grounds employees, which is how we're able to bring in the landscaping company for BES and CES. We had vacancies that we weren't able to fill.
Do we have vacancies now in that?
For grounds? No. We only have 2 employees for building, for grounds.
Just we have 2 employees for grounds, and they're solely focused on high school
And middle school.
and the middle school?
and understand a lot of the things they do, such as, the tables, the chairs,
Well, I think that's partially why you're asking, right?
There's a lot of activity that happens in the just mowing grass.
Right.
Or taking care of snow, so if you eliminate those, if you just say those 2 people decide to do it, you have to really want to do the contract. Then you have to find some way to line the fields, because that wouldn't happen anymore. Mowing the field before the game, lining before the game. None of that stuff would happen without an employee allowed to do it. But I don't know that you can even hire that time, but. So-
I think it would be good to know what those other things are. Come up with those.
Other than, so.
Other than-
Other than landscaping.
Other than mowing and
Weed whack.
weed whacking.
They do maintenance and buildings, and I signed it to them. So they have to do the changing edibles if something breaks in the building, I send them to do that because I have to. I'm not gonna have them sit around doing nothing all winter, I have to do business, so that's why I assign the maintenance worker in the off season. They don't sit around.
We can put the other ones on.
I also went back and looked at the contract service with Belmont Middle School. Part of it was the elevator, but the majority of the cost, $75,000, was the contract with custodians that we had to have for the middle school because we were short-staffed and didn't have coverage. So that was $75,000 of that 91.
And that's no problem.
So it looks like the Belmont Middle School is slated for some new equipment. Can you just let us know, like $11,000, what kind of new equipment's going to be? It's on page 4. New equipment for Belmont Middle School.
It's an auto scrubber for the floors.
Okay.
You see that in the note, Jen, right below it?
Oh, there it
There's
is.
quite a bit of space.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
okay.
the note,
All right, that's fair.
a
So
couple
it's-
lines down.
Does an auto scrubber cost $10,000?
Yes, it does.
What is it?
It's something you also kind of watch for.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the big areas like the trees and all the ways and stuff like that. Keeps it warm.
And just because I have to ask, is ours broken?
Yeah, it's good. So I'm on cycle 1 year instead of the alcohol for 1 year. Because of the cost, I'm trying to break it out so it goes 1 year.
So then that means we're gonna look at this every year. It just
So
so.
the next 2 years after this year, the other total 2
Four.
years, and then we've done for roughly 7 years. Because now they come up with 3 batteries and guaranteed 7. So we're having fresh batteries for 3 years. Yeah, they'll lose that.
So that was what I was gonna ask, the life expectancy on them is at least 7 years, because that's the
The
one.
batteries alone, 7 years, that's very, very.
So maybe we see this expense for 4 years in a row, and then we have like 3 years without? Because then when each building has one?
Yeah, at minimum.
Are we trying to get, we can't get another year out of the one we have? I guess it's trying to simplify what Michelle was asking.
You already have it.
We already have.
We're putting a lot of repairs on because we're make them more.
And where do we pay for the repairs out of it here?
Repair and maintenance.
Are the maintenance people?
Repair and maintenance for that building would be where they would come out.
Okay. mass buildings?
Like Bob said, I'm going to do that for the model.
So looking at repair and maintenance being mass buildings, kind of hard for me to figure out, because there was a really large number in 25. And then we've been at 25,000 for the year to propose to tell how much we're putting into it.
Yeah, it's difficult because when something breaks, we have to fix it. We don't necessarily anticipate all of those costs, and
Yeah.
there was that year that DMS did a lot of repairs.
Is it possible on page 6 for the new carpet, so the meaning guidance section of DES? That's what I'm thinking is for DES, right? Is that a dire need to replace that carpet?
It's pretty worn out, that's all I can say about it.
Just
You
12,000?
can't make it look right by shape when they do one. It's pretty badly worn. Well, that's the recommendation to the president.
And we pushed that off this year.
That was in last year's budget as well, we pushed it off.
I guess I would like to know, because I'm pretty sure you're gonna tell me all of these are necessary, otherwise you're gonna put this budget, right? Just, right, I mean, just, so if we, you guys don't have to agree with me, but if we can't have it all, and we can't, like, we're gonna have to prioritize something, so, like, what would it be? I'm not asking you right now, but for me, that's kind of like, I'm not saying I want to just kick things down the road, but I just, given the economy and where people are at and being $53,000 over what we like, I'm just, for me, I want to know what are the priorities, which are the things that are safety, have to be fixed. Just so we know, I'm not saying that's where I'm coming from.
So we'll put together a priority list for the items that are not on the CIP, the
That's
additional costs we provide it to you.
I mean,
And if it's a safety issue, we're fixing it.
That's
So it's not,
That-
that's something we certainly would do this year.
Right.
Notice a safety issue, we would fix it.
Somewhere, Michelle, you're asking specific to the buildings, right?
Yeah.
Overall budget.
Well, that's probably true in the overall budget. I'm just, it's hard for me because I'm gonna ask you like, okay, like, why do we need 6? No, that's in the trust. Partitions, or is the stage curtain really bad?
That is, yes.
Yeah, no, but that's but that's
That
what I'm
is really-
saying. And I don't, and it's just every question I ask you about this, if there's a reason it's on here. But if you can't have it all,
So last year, we sort of talked about this in need to have versus nice to have. So maybe if we could sort of, I mean, I'm not talking like every single line item, but there are certain things that, you know, if we put them in the need to have category or in the nice to have category, that may make it a little bit easier.
As I said, we'll provide a prioritized list for these building improvements that don't fall on the CIP.
Yeah, it's also helpful to know what, like, the carpet that we cut out, or that it was cut out last year, because I don't want to get back in that place where we, like our furniture, where we just keep cutting it out, and now, you know, it's a huge amount that we're trying to come out of it. So if it was cut 3 years in a row, I'd like to know.
I think the BES master was covered 4 years.
I mean,
So this is.
there's probably other things
last
like
year,
that. but-
You've been asking 4 years on stuff, but we haven't.
To your point, Joe, that's a good example of maybe bringing in the fields. This hasn't made it through the proposed budget development process for the past 2 years. So it's the third year you're seeing it.
But we did have in the DES budget for this year, we had some carpet replacement that was scheduled to be done. However, when the Joint Bus Safety Committee walked around, the condition of the bathrooms at Belmont Elementary were absolutely atrocious, and really raised some flags. So that's when we went to Steve as a committee and said, something needs to be done about these bathrooms. Steve then talked to Ben, and the two of them agreed that the bathrooms were a higher priority than the carpets, because it really was disgusting.
But we wouldn't know some of that because they don't necessarily come, I mean, it goes through a process before, we wouldn't know the stuff is cut because we didn't come to us. So I'm just saying, when we prioritize the list, it's just hopeful to have, I guess what I'm saying is it's hopeful to have some context.
I guess one other thing to think about, I feel like I bring this up every year, but for the average person who's not in the school, who say, this room needs new carpet. Does it really need new carpet? I don't know, I haven't seen it. Boy, it'd be nice if our website had a couple of examples of things that we have in the budget and why they need to be replaced. If we're replacing, I don't know, elementary school desks because they literally don't stand, they don't sit still, like they wobble. Like, we should have examples of that stuff so people know why we're saying we need furniture, or why we need carpet. We need a new curtain, stage curtain. I don't know what that looks like. Your definition of in bad shape might be different than my definition, but we don't know. We don't have any. I'm a visual person, like I have no idea what it looks like. I just think those are things that we should be, as a district, thinking about, especially when the budget's up, whole budget's up, to have examples of some of the things that we really have to replace.
Can I ask a question about the carpet? Just the whole concept, and I worked in that office for a decade, and it was carpeted. The offices have to be carpeted because they could put flooring down that might last longer than carpet, because in an elementary school, old carpets need to be replaced, like, stuff happens. But if it was a floor that could be more sanitary and maybe replaced less often, it might be a better investiture for the community. Just a question.
Usually when you have an area that's carpeted and it gets bad and it needs to be replaced, you make a decision, going out on changing it, going to a floor, and after you've had carpet down, it's a long way to get that carpet off, to get the glue up, and to prep the floor to take a hard floor. So it's quite expensive to put a hard floor in after you have carpet. So generally, it should be a carpet or a carpet top. You replace it just for cost reasons at that point.
But some people would question whether it's, yes, more expensive right off the bat, but over the course of 10 years, does it become less expensive? Possible?
More than likely it would, but sometimes you can't always spend to get the best right now, you don't have the money to do. So sometimes we have to take the choice that fits the money we have to spend.
Right, I guess I'm looking at it that, okay, if it's gonna take $25,000 to make that a hard surface that I could clean on a regular basis because they were 3 to 10-year-olds in there and they need to be cleaned, I could wait a year and save another $12,000 and do a floor that I know is clean, because goodness knows when I drop my pen down on the floor, I'm using a hand wipe to clean that sucker before I move it along. Sorry, folks.
And part of the reason that they put the carpeting in those offices in the first place is for soundproofing. Because when you're dealing with students or parents, it provides a little bit of a cushion for sound.
Yes. That's just a thought.
I forgot the question, but I believe it was regarding the money that was set aside this year for the, I can't remember, it was only CES, but it was $900,000 to replace the air handlers, right? Or throughout this district, I think it was. Now, I know he hasn't come across to the school district yet, but the ARIS report is done for the town of Canterbury, and they're looking at, I believe, probably next Tuesday, at the areas report, and they're gonna make a decision. And one of the things is that the three-phase power that it would be beneficial for the equipment put in here is not necessary under the areas report. So then, does that affect the air handlers that are gonna be put in here? And if the school district is gonna have to foot the bill in order to bring three-phase all the way over here? And my overall question is, replacing the air handlers from the old ones to this ones, do you not see that improving the heating systems in here? Like, one of the things that the library did this past year is they did a heating installation. And one of the things that it came to it was it increased the noise. It reduced the noise. It had other changes. And I was thinking, if we're changing the air handlers here, if that would impact the heating costs for next year, if we were making those changes this year.
So, thanks for bringing that up, Edgar. I've been all over that since you let me know that the town is potentially not considering putting three-phase down at the transfer station because it's not needed to run the compactors. So I took when you let me know that, I took and ran with it. So I've been in touch with Unitel and spoke with the project manager there. In order to run three-phase here to CES, there's only 5 sections because hole 73, which is right down here in the corner, is where three-phase terminates. And to run it up to pole 6, which is the one right outside of the main entrance here, is 5 sections. They gave me a quote of $52,000. Just so people know, the original quote was over $600,000 because they didn't necessarily know where the three-phase was, where it was located. So that's just to run it to the pole. And now I'm waiting on a quote for what it's going to cost to run it from the pole inside. And I asked for the quote to give us the capability of running it from the pole inside, but also future potential expansions so that the actual power and equipment that they bring into the school can handle at minimum a 2-classroom addition or any other upgrade electrical needs. So I thank you for bringing that up. But to your other question, whenever we upgrade the HVAC units in here, they're more efficient. Therefore, it should help us with the costs for heating as well as ventilation in general.
But are we using the HVAC system as a heat pump for electric heat versus pellet or gas? I think that is that what you're asking?
My whole idea is, there's the humidity, it affects the humidity, it affects the whole environment. So as far as, the heat retainment or how cold it is compared to whatever the system is doing when it comes to electrical power too, if we're gonna see an improvement, which means a reduction in the cost from that. Because those projects are planned for this year, right?
Yeah, so the three-phase is planned for this year, bringing it to CES, and that's going to be a much greater savings based on what our original estimate was. And then we're going to take the additional monies that we have. Let's say that the total project during three-phase is $200,000, right? We anticipated that to be over $600,000 just to do that. The board had approved over $900,000 to work on the HVAC project this year, so we're taking the priority list, put three-phase in here, and then we're going to prioritize the units, particularly CES and BES, where the ventilation is either non-existent or very poor, up to the amount that the board has approved. So let's say we're going to have $700,000 to be able to put towards units because our three-phase came in a lot lower than we had anticipated. And then we're currently in building and grounds right now. We're working on revising the CIP for the next several years to reflect the HVAC project. So that's a discussion that's happening right now in building and grounds.
But I think Edgar's point was, if we're going to have a cost savings in heating.
In heating and electrical, due to the equipment that's
We
being
just don't
replaced?
know.
It depends on the unit we buy. As when we were presented the information, they broke it down into, you have two different units, right? You have the unit, like we can save ourselves $50,000, but then they're like, that unit that we're saving $50,000 doesn't do the dehumidification or the recycling of the air in the building. So in other words, like you heat up your building when they cycle it through. The old units, they just pump your hot air out the window. Where if you spent the extra $50,000, it actually dehumidifies the air and then keeps your heat from being lost. Which I figure was a recycler. I can't remember. There's a name for it. But anything we've been told by people is like you spend the extra money and you'll see heat savings, everything savings by going a little bit more expensive, or we can just go cheap and then we're in the same trouble in 20 years.
So as it pertains to this proposed operating budget, we can't estimate what those savings would be at this point because we haven't even determined which HVAC units we would be utilizing. So we're not even there at this point, but I can't imagine we'd be able to estimate the cost savings in electricity as well as fuels at this point. We'd have to run it for at least a year to get an idea as to what those actuals would be. So that's how we do budget for it.
Yeah, I mean, but I would think that, yeah, the system that is recirculating all the air and puts it back in could bring a reduction, but I just trying to bring awareness, if we keep that mentality as you go about making your decisions.
Absolutely.
You know, to see if we can reduce those costs, because I'm also on the energy, I'm in the electrical representative for Canterbury, and electrical costs are gonna go up in the coming years, like quite a bit. It the Northeast yet, but that is something that we need to tackle, because as a school district, you're gonna see a huge increase, and putting in systems that help reduce that usage should be better.
That's our goal.
Other questions from Steve?
Was the baseball field re-engineered this year? Is that just a rumor?
We've been discussing how we're gonna improve the drainage on it, but we haven't moved on it at this point.
As soon as my father give me a paper that's eligible, I will give it to them with an idea of the budget number. Buzz B had a number that was kind of, we could build an addition instead of a field.
So with that in mind, would it make sense to not redo the infield there if that's something?
It wouldn't affect the infield.
Okay.
It's only the outfield, where they took the helicopters and dug holes, and blowers.
I seem to remember the whole field being wet. Been a little while.
When you have the swamp out that way, it's higher than the field of water. It's kind of a ruffle.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Next up is athletics. 2 pages.
This is Ken Bellier, who's our athletics director.
Nothing too big, obviously the one big thing is the jump in the trainer position, which would basically make the person full-time, 40 hours a week for all seasons. That would be a same contract with Grand State.
Fees for the meets.
Yeah, just some of those have gone up, like the indoor track fees have gone up, because there's very few schools that even have them, so those fees have just gone up in the past. But yeah, I try to base a lot of it on the actuals that we have, and like the transportation one, so that's something that is going up as well.
I was just curious about the VHS athletic officials. The actual was $25,099 and then budget was $20,000.
Yeah, so it was because of like a mix between 2 years where it didn't reflect on the previous year and it reflected on last year. So it's
So
just,
that actual.
yeah, that actually was not, yeah, it's entirely accurate.
Can we go back to the athletic trainer? So my understanding is that it was added, this 15,000 was added by the board recently. Am I close?
So there was,
What's the thought process in going full-time? Because to me, that's a luxury, not a need. And I have 3 sport athletes and totally get behind that, but
yeah, so it's definitely something that we, for a long time, we had it full-time and funded, and then the difficulty that we ran into was that we were not able to fill the position. And that's when it kind of started to get cut, and really the only way to attract somebody to actually fill the position is for it to be full-time.
so that made me feel old because I didn't think my kids had been gone that long. We definitely didn't have one at that time.
I mean, when I walked in, which was 7,
9 years ago? No, it might have been the year after I left.
yeah,
So this past year, you utilized the fire department?
we did some for hockey because by like NHIA policy, you have to have it for certain sports. So we definitely did for that to make sure that by. It was more
But didn't hockey pay for that?
for the trainer piece. Yes, I believe.
Hockey
that
program paid, the school district.
Okay.
Build out on that specifically.
So which lends me to a question on when there are 2 games happening at the same time, but not both on the high school property, but we could be hosts.
It would go to the higher risk sport where we prioritize.
Which would be hockey.
Yeah.
Compared to other D3 schools in the area, how many of them have full-time trainers?
Fair amount of them have been picking up. I know Guilford has a full-time trainer. I know Molten Borough has a full-time trainer. And those are actually, Winnisquam has a full-time trainer, but they're actually district employees as opposed to contractors. So it's definitely the trend of where the future is going, especially as they're exploring more and more on the concussion protocol and that kind of stuff.
Right. I was talking with somebody from a different district, and they contract with their local fire department. Not sure the logistics of that, but they are a smaller, D3, but.
So when we weren't able to fill the trainer position,
Yeah.
we used to budget approximately $26,000 as a contracted service.
Yeah.
And that was when, that was about 7 years ago.
That was in the state at that time, so it was a graduate student as opposed.
And then we weren't able to get anyone to fill that position from the state as well as grant state physical therapy. So we cut the budget down to $10,000 to utilize the local EMS, our fire department, if necessary, or to be present at the games.
Yeah.
That was also, whether they could be present or not is a different story depending on the calls that they had. So we would get billed by the town for the use of those services, and we had up to $10,000 to that to utilize those. However, you're not getting the same type of access to a certified certified athletic trainer as what this position is.
And NHIA only mandates us to have someone there for the games?
So for certain sports, they mandate that you need to have it, such as football and ice hockey and other sports. It's not mandated by the NHIA, but it's obviously highly encouraged that you have it.
What would they
Because
do
it's
for the
done.
rest of the hours of
That
the week?
was my question, like, is it an 8-hour day? What-
Yeah, so like they would cover practices and stuff like that. Like right now, we obviously have one, like right after school, where she does rehab with different kids that were injured and or need that type of stuff. And then she'll head down to the game or head down to practices. But currently, we are not contracted for like because basically the way this would be broken out is it's $15,000 a season. Whereas right now, we are paying per hour that she is paid.
Okay, so it's $15,000 per season.
Yep.
But is it really 8 hours a day?
5 days a week or whatever.
After school would only be like 5 hours.
Yeah, so it would all depend on when she would come in. And obviously, you know, right now, because we're paying by the hour, I'm definitely a little bit more trying to keep things like it, whereas with it being contracted, like that would be the expectation that we would have them there throughout the entire, like, because in winter, you're talking till 9:15 for practices, for us.
Came to do, she will also come in, correct me if I'm wrong, let's say we have an away game and the students are being dismissed at 1:30, she comes in early to essentially take an afternoon. So it's not just after school, but could be during school hours that she can work as well.
So in the winter, you could be looking at more than 40 hours a week?
Yeah.
Would that get us into overtime?
Right,
then?
so no, so it's a contract, like at that point, like that's the contract that we would have with them, like we're not sitting there saying that if it goes to 46 hours, that we need to pay the difference.
So who will set her schedule?
Yeah.
Are there, we were kind of discussing like insurance coverage and stuff, are there any potential savings by having an athletic trainer towards the insurance coverage?
Not for our liability, it could save our families potentially, because, you know, we're mitigating the risk of injury, or our families aren't paying out of their own health insurance.
Is she doing the concussion protocols too?
Yeah. Yep.
So what
And
does
she's
she?
also been working some with the return to learn, which is kind of a new thing that's coming out, which is concussion around the state. They're basically running a pilot.
So can you say more about what she does with concussion?
Yeah, so basically, you have a thing called the SCAT-6 test, which is basically what she goes through that has symptoms and everything like that. Based on that, like, she is not legally allowed to diagnose a concussion. At that point, it would be a referral to a primary care doctor or somebody to be evaluated for that. And then, depending on what that evaluation comes with, would be, there's a process to return to play on different levels. There's a protocol on that.
So what you're requesting is $15,000 a season, flat, whether we work her 80 hours a week or 10 hours a week. No, I'm just,
Yes.
I like to go
flat.
last.
Yep.
Would this position come into the school from wanting to let kids use the exercise room before school? I mean, I don't,
Yeah.
we put money into it, I don't know if it's being used.
It's
Maybe adult-
definitely being used more in the rehab after school with kids, because that's where she spaces herself most of the time.
Are you talking about the weight room?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know people that wanted to use it, but like last year, they were told there was no way to like supervise them, so they were students that eagerly wanted to use it, but without the correct, I'm like, call in the janitor, like,
You saying in the morning
or yeah, like in the morning or after school, but.
And I know one of the things that she really wanted to put in is like some type of like strength and conditioning for kids as well.
I'm all for like the physical therapy stuff because I used to get taped up with track meets and it was so, and they do help you when you get injured and stuff. I do have a hard time with the hurdle of it being a full-time position because it does seem like it's not an 8-hour day. I wish that we could, there was a more creative way. Like I wish we could send our nurses off to just like a little more training and they can do the nursing and then be, up to, I know different professions, but I'm just trying to think outside the box a little bit,
Just want to make sure I'm clear on the transportation athletics at the end of both BMS and BHS. That is all cost related to busing for students.
bills come in itemized, so I break them out depending on what they are, either field trip, athletics, middle school, high school, all that.
Yeah, so field trips and all that would be included.
Field trips
Just,
are not included in that.
I'm just thinking, to decide, at some point we might want to look into our own bus, our own train station. It would basically save 43.
Depending on how many games you have and where they're going. And
Yeah, certainly something we wouldn't do ourselves in county.
I know a lot of districts, because of the busing issues we've had, have definitely been looking more at those passenger vans.
Or those turtle top.
We're looking into the same.
Other questions?
So I have a question. So we don't have coaches drives games, right?
Right.
Because of the bus. Is there a change in liability or duty to an individual and now they will have to be driving a 50-passenger van, to the game or from the game back? Is there a change in the insurance or liability when it comes to that?
No.
No. But if we have coaches that are driving a team, let's say, to a competition, the only one I can think of right now would be our golf team. We utilize our transition vehicles that we have at the high school to bring a small group to those competitions. That just requires a driver's license, and the employees covered under our liability. So that's why the 14 passenger vans are ideal, because you're not looking at having to go through the CDL process that you would for anything larger than that.
And that is that ability to be able to drive a 50,000 van is currently in the duty description for someone in that position?
No.
So asking somebody to do that, I would think it has a risk.
I don't think we've gone down.
We haven't
gone down.
Yeah, so I mean, you said you were looking into that. Something to think about, some people.
We've already had some people that say, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
So even if we let them know that they're covered under our liability coverage.
Yeah, but I mean, by the time the game is over, they're pretty tired too. Also in the snowstorms and stuff.
Anything else? Thank you. Next up is special ed.
We're debating on whether or not I was going last. It's gonna be a good last, so.
Well, I should have said this early on, but like this one's 5 pages, so if you have a question, it wouldn't hurt to say on page, whatever, so we all know where.
This is Tanya Mitchell-Berry. She's our Director of Student Services.
Hello. So I'm going to start on page 1. We have a increase in tuition for EMS, and that's based on placements, but we have a decrease for tuition at VHS. So if you look at the bottom of, the top of the middle of page 2, and the special education 1210 function, there's a reduction of just over $37,000. And that decrease is really based on funding that I'm able to provide in the IDA grant. What? The IDA grant. So the IDA grant is Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. We have a lot of money that's given to us. We have about $313,000 that we were awarded. Typically, I fund our school psychologists over there, 2 special education teachers, as well as print media and supplies out there. We have about $7,000 for preschool, but that's no longer provided to us from the Department of Ed. from the federal government.
Correct.
Fees.
Moving on, there was an increase for travel for our ESOL teacher, because we had to make more trips to Canterbury Elementary School to support the students. Moving on to, any questions on page 2 or page 1 before I move on? Moving on to page 3. So there's really nothing significant in this. I did budget print media for psych in case there's any new assessments that I did budget for in this school year. We're moving it out of the IDA grant, so outside of that, there's really not much. There is a transition of students with contracted physical therapy. Not much there. In the middle of page 4, in other eval, there was a reduction at Belmont Middle School for $52,000, reduction at the high school for $17,000. And that's based on hiring the BCBA and student movement.
So what would an example of other eval be?
Other eval would be contracted services for behavioral supports, vision services.
So these are evaluations that are done, that the district sends students out for evaluation?
No, so the 2190 for other eval, but those are contracted services, not outside evaluations. So we have a reduction in that area because previously we had contracted for behavioral support services, but because we hired a BCBA in-house, and that's a board certified behavioral analyst in the district, that has been really helpful to be able to reduce those services.
Right, so even at that, we're at approximately $225,000 on evals above and beyond that individual, or am I understanding this?
So that's a reduction at the middle school. What I proposed are $70,000 for the middle school. I'm in the middle of page 4.
Right, yeah, so
You're totaling.
yeah, I'm totaling
okay.
all schools together. So it's
Yeah.
approximately $225,000 above and beyond that personnel that we've been able to hire.
But they're not all the same services.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So moving on to page 5, rather, that's a reduction of $73,000 or $73,418.
Can I back you up to
Yeah.
page 4 again? So the travel for sped director, is that miles? Is that?
That's mile reimbursement.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions on page 4?
Did you, just because I'm curious, you include your budget for supplies and for media? What, like, just curious? Anything specific?
So I increased that in, really in case that there was something that I wasn't able to get approved through the IDA grant that I needed to implement to students' IEP in case of emergency, or I did make such significant drastic decreases to my budget.
Then you can see the note under print media that's for the CPI books, that's for training.
Yeah.
We're utilizing those for, we're utilizing grant monies to cover that.
They're way too far down.
I know.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's really hard to see it at the bottom of the page, yes.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, I didn't see it at all. Thank you.
Unfortunately, that's the way the
Yeah.
system prints the summary sheets.
Sorry, I have a question on the decrease. And then, obviously, I level funded the transportation, as I did this previous year, just because I'm really not sure how that's going to shake out. But I have a reduction of $111,000. It's a reduction overall.
And the transportation, is that specialized transportation? Is that
All of that is specialized transportation.
not for the transition vehicles and, right? It's just those who require specialized transportation in their IEP.
Correct.
Could you explain the Medicaid billing?
So that's a service that we contract for students who qualify for Medicaid. We use Medicaid state billing to provide those services, and that's the amount that they charge us, and that's a reduction.
Because I thought this.
Yeah, so we contract them to do all of our billing services out of house, and that's actually really helpful in terms of that, just that additional layer of protection for Medicaid billing.
So they get a percentage of whatever we recoup for Medicaid. So what we get back is in the revenue side, but we have to pay them a percentage of everything that we get. So that shows up. Yes, correct.
So just another question on that line though. The actuals for 25 are much lower than proposed. Is Medicaid billing based on like numbers or?
It's on who qualifies, correct, for, and they keep changing some of the rules of what we can bill.
So we think 10,000 is more likely than FY 25.
Yes, because it's based on the number of students who qualify, so I looked at last year's numbers and the number of students that may or may not be eligible.
What percentage of your students do qualify?
You know, I would really have to go ahead and look at that number, but I would say probably maybe 10% of our students with IEPs qualify for that. And that's an approximate number.
And not all services are available.
Correct.
So.
It's really prescriptive, and yeah. we've had
I'm very
reimbursement.
self-pleased, so I have done.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay, great.
So back on page 4 with the 225,000 on the services or evaluations, what's did you have an approximate on the number of hours and the range of services? Would it make sense to try and I guess hire someone that would be able to offer services based on the number of hours? I don't know how many hours that they're servicing. Because I mean, geez, that 225,000 would go a long ways on personnel. I just don't know what the range of services and how many
Yeah,
hours.
so I'm a big proponent of obviously having in-house people. We would obviously advocating for the BCBA, and also there was a transition vehicle some time ago when we were very costing us like a lot of, much money to transport those students. So unfortunately, with a lot of the students who are requiring those outside services are for hearing and vision. And there's such a critical shortage for that it would be very difficult, and I'm not sure it'd be cost effective for us to go ahead and hire somebody in-house, nor would I be able to honestly contract or hire someone to do that, because it's such a specialty. And then in the whole state, we're very fortunate that we do have both those hearing and vision teachers, those outside consultants that come in. Very fortunate. Good question. So overall, my budget is down just over $111,000.
I was just surprised how much the budget is, because I'm new to, you know what I mean? I know we have special education. I was just kind of shocked at what percentage it was. Do you have an idea of how many students overall take advantage of these services, so I can get a cost per student? I can figure that out. Is it 20 kids, 100 kids?
So we have just over 200 students identified in our district.
Okay.
Out of 1,100.
Yeah.
But you really can't take the total cost of special ed and divide it by that, because services are so customized based on the student needs, that it's not a flat formula, this is what the cost per pupil is.
Yeah, it's just if I add up the CES, the DES, the Belmont Middle School, and Belmont High School, if I add up all their sections, it's within $100,000 of what special ed does. So I'm just like, what's going on? Here I am trying to make sense of it, that's all.
Well, I guess it's like a placement is probably.
So the placements can range anywhere from $64,000 to $175,000 per placement, and out-of-district placement per student.
Okay, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that
So,
means.
for example, if we have a student that moves in that's already been placed at Spalding Youth Center, that placement could cost us anywhere from, for that specific placement, somewhere between $85,000 to $175,000.
Oh, so we have to pay for them to go to Spalding?
Correct.
Oh,
If there's a
goodness.
student or students that we cannot accommodate within our public school, we
Oh.
have to pay for them to go elsewhere.
And then transportation
And
costs to get them.
transportation too, yeah.
Thanks for explaining that.
And that total goes up to $300,000 and $500,000 for one student.
It can improve.
I'm in the wrong business.
Which I'm assuming is where some of your savings comes from, is graduated people or those that have
Or
moved
students that have moved out.
and moved out or just next door in my county.
You never know. I mean, really, if I had a magic 8 ball, I mean, it would be great, but I don't. I mean, I could have a student move in tomorrow after I've already submitted this to you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, you know, anything can happen, but we do have the expendable trust for that reason.
So Jennifer, I was just gonna say, I mean, that's the gamble, is you never know, you could have, you know, a family of five or six, you know, move in, all with severe needs. And all of a sudden now you're looking at an additional, you know, $800,000, you know, dollars a year in special ed funding.
Wow.
In our processes, we try to, if that's an unanticipated expense, we look to the operating budget first, then we would look at our trust to absorb that cost, and then last, we have a retained fund balance that we would tap into.
And we're obligated to start servicing, for lack of a better word, these students at the age of 3, or is it 2.5? 3? 3.
To age 22.
And you're saying there's like 200 people identified that fall.
Just over 200.
Yeah. Wow.
And one student might have multiple therapies too.
Well, without knowing any better, when I see physical therapists, I'm like, wait a minute, we were just talking about physical therapists. Can they do that physical therapy too? You know, and make it a full-time position, but it doesn't work.
I don't have enough students for that. I have looked at that as well. I definitely, it's a better expense for us to be able to hire somebody in district than it is for us to contract. Certainly done my best in the areas to do that when applicable.
We have, and it's difficult to compete with those private contracted services when it comes to salary ranges.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Oh, I have one question. I think, yeah, okay. Personnel changes. There were 2 special ed teachers. Go to that. How's it impact?
I don't believe it will have an impact because our number of students that are identified right now in each of the buildings is decreasing because of the supports that have been put into place at both elementary schools, specifically around our SLD population.
Specific ones.
Yes, thank you.
Talk about those 2 positions. What exactly were they? Were they more of a specialty area or just general?
They were general special ed teachers.
In different buildings?
Yes, in different buildings.
One at PES and one at PHS.
And we haven't been able to fill them either. It's an important piece.
They're vacant positions.
But they're not needed. No, I believe that we will to meet the needs of the students we have, and we're currently doing that, so.
And we've left one vacant special ed teacher position in the budget to follow what we consider a bubble of students from the middle school to the high school. Just haven't determined whether that position will be in the middle or the high school.
And that position still open as well.
Now, this budget doesn't include this special education teachers or ICDA, or just so people know this is just.
So it seems, is it fair to characterize it as that this section of the budget is really not all that negotiable because it's required? So the only tools you really have is to maybe not hire some of the positions or put them on hold. That's the only leverage you have.
Yeah, everything I have in my budget right now is based on the IEPs that we currently have in the district.
I mean, we've saved money, I think, in the past by hiring in-house positions.
Yeah.
So we don't have to contract, so I don't know if anybody else always looking at those possibilities.
How many homeless students are in special ed? Excuse me. How many homeless students are in special ed?
I'm not sure.
Is that-
I don't believe that we have any homeless students right now in special ed, so.
Other questions? Thank you. All right, we have 4 schools left.
So you want pizza?
And Canterbury is up first. Okay. Guys, speak up.
So welcome Erin Chubb, she's the principal here at Canterbury Elementary School.
And my apologies, if I was thinking at all, I would have asked Sean to have you go first, because I know you're not feeling well tonight.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, like I said, if I was thinking at all, I mean, she and I talked about it beforehand, and I spaced it. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's all right. I could have asked too. So, questions for me?
Okay. It was like,
I'm happy to take questions.
If we're gonna make her
I
do
know.
this.
Somebody has a question. You have a question? No, I'm taking a question.
Just because I'm curious, with your transportation for field trips, how many field trips, like per grade level or?
So we have several in the fall and several in the spring. The students have already taken 2, so P2 did a trip and third, fourth did a trip. In the winter, the 3rd and 4th grade, does winter sports thing, and we should go off campus for that. And then in the spring, there's a couple of class-wide trips, and then the all-school field trip.
So you could have 6 trips, but they're not necessarily, not everybody's in there. They're broken up, some are just K2, some are just.
Right, so we tend to have the K2 group and then the 3rd and up group. And then we have the whole school, we do that one in the spring.
Does it include the nature's classroom?
No, so nature's classroom is 5th grade only, and the students fundraise for it, and parents pay out of pocket.
I had to come up with one question.
What is R and M for the nurse?
Repair and maintenance.
Repair and maintenance.
Calibration of the audiometer.
Is travel CES, is that for you or is it for the staff? How does that work?
It is not for me.
It's for the ex-interns.
Yes, so we have folks who travel between schools, for example, from BMS to CES, and they do get mileage reimbursement for that.
Librarian, music teacher.
So in general, if there's a meeting at BES, the teachers here, so there's an elementary-wide meeting at BES. Teachers here don't get us paid to go to BES, or vice versa. Here, BES teachers come.
Or administrator. I'm being a little cheeky. Michael's used to me. We do invite folks to come our way too.
Yeah.
So it works out.
For the school library services, earlier this evening, we heard about some of the technology costs with regard to the library. But this all, in your section, it also has electronic info for CES library. Can you just highlight how they're different in the expenditures, like what they are? So I guess that's page 3.
looking at what the library is.
Online reservations.
Yeah, page 3 at the top. So it's like 4,000 for print and almost 5,000 for electronic info.
Yes, so she purchases a couple of subscriptions that the students can use, primarily ebooks, so students can access books that way. And then they also have software that they use when they instruct in class. Debbie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it also is for the actual software that we use to check the books in and
No,
out?
that comes out of
It's separate?
technology.
Okay.
So this is just strictly the subscriptions that they have, like with Ecolet or with Global World Book. So it's online subscriptions to reference data and books for the students.
Is there any crossover between the two schools? Yes. Yes.
They won't let us do that anymore. We used to do one subscription and then divide it between the schools, and then companies are getting smart and saying, no, it's per site, no longer per level.
I find another subscription.
They're also
Does the accelerated reader testing fall, like that kind of software fall within here, or is that over in technology when they take those tests?
I believe it's out of curriculum.
It's in curriculum, okay.
Okay, so this amount is small, but it's very specific at $313 for electronic info.
Yes, that is for Pickup Patrol, which is our subscription for an app that parents can use to input information regarding student absences, tardies, early dismissals, transportation. Yeah, it's
So we're gonna see that in every school.
magical and worth $313.
Two elementary schools.
I bought me that.
You see it through school.
Yes.
BES.
It is magical.
That's, that, the parents have to love that, that's awesome.
Yeah, honestly, I think most of our parents are still kind of getting the hang of it, but people are participating, which is helpful. It really saves teachers and office staff a lot of time, and also just helps us be more accurate with dismissals
Yeah.
especially.
That's awesome.
And yes, it's a really exact amount.
Is that licensing based on the size of the school?
Yes.
Per pupil cost.
$2.50 a student for the year. Well worth it. Yes, well worth it.
Other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hope you feel better.
Thank you.
You want to take a quick break?
Do you want to take a quick break?
Want to keep going? All right, next up is Belmont Elementary Schools. 4 pages.
Good evening, everyone. This is Ben Hill, our principal of Belmont Elementary School.
I guess in the way of brevity, the budget's up from last year, about $5,000. Three major contributors to that. Reflex Math, which is an application to practice that fluency. That was previously in the operating budget, but not in the DES budget, so the new DES budget. Pickup Patrol, as you just talked about. And then our printing costs are $1,500. That's based on actuals. But three contributors to the increases. Not even a question to it.
What about the autism school in the play centers?
Yeah, the steamroller is a piece of equipment. It's for students with sensitive needs, not just students with autism. But kindergarten play centers, kindergarten has been adding a play center each year. They're very efficient in the sense that they share them. So we don't buy play centers for each classroom. They buy a play center for kindergarten and they rotate them throughout the year. with the different classrooms.
And you're saying Flex Math is not new, it's just moved.
Correct.
Does grade 3 not need this?
Need guests? The furniture information is based on a 5-year plan that we created last year. So grade 3 is about just in the other grades.
They just need tools.
We're in year 2 of 5-year
Well, I
plan.
was just wondering, first, second, and fourth.
Yeah, and that's this year. This year's heavy. The first 2 years are heavy. The next 2 years are lower, I think. So it's in a better shape there, and the more furniture side.
Why is the kindergarten carpet only $70?
I guess it's a smaller carpet,
Oh,
not a full.
It's the oblong thing with the alphabet on it that goes in the middle.
Those are more expensive.
Those are more
Yeah.
expensive.
Oh, yeah.
This is probably like a little sectional carpet that could have a play center or.
I was on it.
Yeah.
How about, I think it's under enrichment on page 2, the special assemblies, almost $8,000, but not quite. Can you help me understand that?
Yeah, the majority of that covers our naturalist program. So Prescott Farms is a local organization. They send a naturalist to us that provides education each grade level. So it's contracted at, I think it's a $7,800 for the year.
K-4?
Yes.
They don't come for free, huh?
No.
We could ask them, but I don't think that's gonna go over very well.
Investing in our youth.
On page 4, electronic info.
That's good.
And that's based on the student.
So on page 1, the electronic info is,
Items that are used in the classroom, applications that are used in the classroom.
So there's different functions within each one of these.
oh,
so-
that's, I was just asking for what it's used for.
Yeah, but each function, so there might be electronic info in each one of the functions.
Yep.
One of the larger numbers in the entire thing is repair and maintenance for in the principal's office for $9,000. Is there something specific that you're trying to achieve this year?
That's a printing cost, so we pay per page for printing. So
Oh,
why I
that's
mentioned earlier
printing, okay. I thought it was repair and maintenance at the principal office level. It's the
So it's
indication.
called repair maintenance, but it's the copy cost charges,
Okay.
which is in the maintenance of the copier, and it's per copy
Okay.
that they charge.
Yeah, so you have a contract.
You have a lease on it.
Based on page.
Which is different than printing. Right?
Correct, because printing would be, we're going out to have something printed versus doing printing in-house.
Other questions?
Adding a field trip or just the expense of field trips going on?
Yeah. That will cover 2 different project level. So currently we have project levels that are anything more than that. We've done, and we get some grant funding for buses, and otherwise the families have to cover the cost.
We also base that on the increase in the transportation contract.
Anything else? All right, thank you. Middle school.
Evening, everyone. This is Aaron Pope, principal at the middle school.
Happy to answer any questions you have about the budget. What we're planning for the budget. People increases here and there, partially due to some lines moving around. Questions, and a few things that Debbie might have put in the budget to increase like the printer costs.
Only because of what you use.
How many students do you have right now?
We have 349.
So is Smart Home Pass similar to Pickup Patrol, but used in the building?
Yeah, so that's a line that moves to, I believe that moves to the principal's line. So we use Pickup Patrol, which has been great. We're also looking at some other software to have digital hall passes for our students so we can, better monitor our kids. It also includes some software that our tech department uses across the district. So we have the ability to monitor kids' Chromebook use in the classroom. So it does multiple things. It also actually includes visitor entry software too. So it's kind of a neat programming. I'm pretty excited about it, actually.
It's an added security layer.
It's a lot better than the little clipboard I used to run.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to do.
That's awesome.
Think about switching careers. From back.
It would be better for my dad, that's for sure.
And electronic computers, pickup phones.
Part of it is the control programs called security, the other one that we just mentioned.
Where was it last year?
It was in the 1100s. It's used for the principal's office.
I was just curious, like, it looks like we need budget for it, but.
Yeah.
We did budget for it for this year. We have the cost savings another line in order to bring down. We piloted it at the end of last year, and we looked at cost savings other line in order to keep it this year. That's why you're seeing it as a new cost every year for next year.
The 12,000 for furniture, is that fall in the same category of capital improvement?
That's correct, yeah, it's part of the plan of the future plan.
Yep. So what's on the, I should probably know, or what's on the agenda?
It generally that buys us a couple of classroom desks and a couple of classroom chairs. One of the things that we've been really excited about this year is we were able to purchase for our math classroom whiteboard top tables. So kids are right on the desk to do a math problem. So we're taking their desks and transitioning to another classroom. Purchasing a whiteboard top tables for our math classrooms.
That was actually clean up.
Yeah, been great, actually.
I just envision like it being like over time.
Me too, originally. Yeah. So we'll see, we've only had them for since the start of the week.
Your external market budget goes, through they drop pictures. Seen it before.
Realizing some of the kids that really didn't want to work on their math on paper.
It's great. Picture your entire desk surface is your paper.
Can you talk a little bit about the robotics and the supplies that you have?
That's one of those lines that Debbie adds into my budget.
Does it involve like field trips or competitions, or is it just all in-house?
I believe that's specifically for supply, is that correct?
Yeah, so the robotics that's in this budget is specifically for supplies or equipment that would not be covered in the grant or in the student activity fund if they're doing fundraisers. So we've been able to get a grant for the last several years that provides some of the competition fees, some of the transportation, some supplies, but obviously it's not enough for the whole program. So there was money that was added for both the middle school program and the high school program.
And that money was added 2 years ago at the deliberative session. By motion, it was put on the floor, and we've been carrying those monies each year.
The team did pretty well too, right? The team, the
Teams
revived
have
team.
done very
They've
well.
done, yeah.
Which co-curricular for the field trip for the last line, transportation field trip / co-curricular?
Oh, it's a music department. We did, we were students to the
I see one for the BMS / band and chorus, and then I see field trips, and then I see field trip / co-curricular. Is that?
I think that's just the total.
That's the
Yeah, that's just
Okay.
what
I get it, yeah.
student, yeah. Glad I'm not the only one to get tripped up on that, you know that. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question about robotics. This is probably for Debbie. So the high school has a dues and fees. It looks like they took some money out of supplies that were budgeted last year and put it in a new category, but that's not here for the middle school. So if they were not to get that grant money, would they not be able to register for competitions at the middle school level without that line item?
So no, the way that that was put into the budget was we were given a set amount of money to put in to be used for supplies or using fees. So I didn't know what it was going to be, how it was going to be split, so I just put it into supplies. But what I do is I track. So if they send in and said, we need more money for dues and fees, which is what the high school needed, we took it out of that dues and fees line, but I made sure we didn't overspend it on the supply line. So the total only went up to the amount approved. So the same thing would happen for the middle school. If they needed the money out of dues and fees and didn't have it in the grant, then if, as long as it was in the general fund, then I would take it out. And the money's still left in that supply line. So I'm trying to run 3 different accounts at the same time to make sure it's all.
So we have to provide, we have to provide transportation for summer school. Because that's not the ESL in this line that I'm looking at the top of page 5.
In summer school.
Couldn't do a paid plan.
It wouldn't pay play.
You gotta run the program.
Right, so theoretically, if we chose, I'm not suggesting this by the way, but to answer your question, it's not extended school year, so we offer it because of what our students need, and then we provide the transportation.
Are we offering it to get them onto the next grade level?
Yeah, so that's considered standards recovery.
Correct.
In middle school.
So there's a reason for it, not just because it's enrichment.
And then my other question with that would be the percentage of students that actually use that bus versus being dropped off and picked up. Just because buses are empty a lot at different times.
And to avoid to fill those seats, it's a combination run between the high school and the middle school for summer school. So they pick students up at the high school first and then come over to the middle school and pick up those students.
Each bus have at least half full when we're running them, really?
No, not no. And this has come up year after year. So we have 77 passenger buses that don't meet full capacity. The cost difference between a 77 passenger bus and a 42 passenger bus is very minimal. And I'm very cautious, particularly after going through the pandemic. If we didn't have 77 passenger buses, we wouldn't have been transporting students to and from school. So it's they come in handy.
Not only is the purchase price almost identical, but the operational costs are virtually identical too.
Right. And there are times, unfortunately, recently where we have to double up buses, and we have to, if we didn't have the 77 passenger bus, we would be able to double up.
So there are some utilizing that service.
Oh, absolutely.
Do all 12 buses run for the summer, or is it
No.
shorter?
Three.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just, this one happens to be in the middle school. I haven't broken out the high school cost from here, but when I do the end of year reports for the state, I do break out the high school cost.
So that's
one of
the-
those things, rather than breaking it out between multiple accounts.
So we won't see the same line in the high school budget, that's the
Correct.
total
It's all-
cost.
that's the total
Okay,
for
because I was
summer
thinking
school.
maybe it was double that.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
no.
Don't you get because
You're the lucky one.
Yeah, so Mr. Phil has some.
So he gets
He's
that
the one that
addition.
started it, okay?
He started it?
Debbie, I think this is a question for you, and then it might just be me being silly, but of all of these proposed budgets, this is the only one where we exclude inactive accounts with a zero balance. Does that actually exclude anything? Are we missing anything
No,
here? Just wanted to check, because it was the only
just how
one
the
that had
report
that
was
check.
set up.
Okay, it was the only one that had that check, I just wanted to make sure.
Actually, both are checked.
Well, all of them have the current accounts with zero balance, but this is the only one that has the exclude inactive accounts with zero balance. So I just wanted to, yes, I just wanted to make sure.
I remember last year, those $4,500 were put in for the music equipment, right? And I thought you said that that will cover replacing the equipment, and now there's another 2,000. What wasn't covered last year?
I would say similar to furniture, we have a replacement cycle for our instruments as well. But I also believe some of the instruments are covered under some grant money. Is that
We're hoping. We're hoping to be able to use some grant money for that. Don't know yet.
And that's why it was lowered to 2,000 instead of another 4,500?
Yes.
Pick about page.
4,500 was specific to that particular equipment that was being purchased.
Oh,
What page are you on?
page 2 of the,
New equipment, EMS music.
yeah, new equipment EMS. So I thought that was, if I remember correctly from last year, that was to replace equipment in the classroom for music.
For music, correct.
Yeah.
But there's different equipment, different times, and the equipment is all different, so they would have different prices.
Yeah, no, but I thought that was gonna replace the equipment that was needed.
Not all of the equipment, it was replacing some.
And then for the equipment for the music band, yeah, we put another 700 we're putting in there. And now another 1,000. Is the equipment from the band and the music classroom not the same?
Not necessarily.
No, I believe the equipment for the band piece this time is for some music stand racks. To help organize the stand itself.
Oh,
And for the replacement equipment, it's percussion equipment specific that needs replacements.
okay.
I noticed kind of throughout the evening that the dues tend to be, they're present, but they're kind of low. But the dues for the principal's office, $2,000 for your school. What does that entail? Like, what is that about?
Yeah, that covers our state and national dues. So the Principal Association for Hampshire and then the National Principal Association for the principal and assistant principal.
Okay. So it must just be a higher rate than the elementary schools.
I'm not sure what the elementary school, but the state dues per individual is approximately $600.
No, that's fine. It stood out as different than some of the others. Okay.
So without the buses, you would have had that. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, just because part of the buses do belong to Mr. Finch. Sorry, sir.
Other questions? Okay, thank you. You're just assuming you're up next.
Bringing a aunt next year.
Bring a pizza.
Mr. Finch, the principal of the high school.
Hello, everyone. So in totality, if you break them down, some of the additions that we have this year are some of the things that are out of our control. Some of the transportation costs for CTE, some of our tuition costs for CTE, those are all going to increase year by year. In totality, we're down the things that we can actually have some impact on, somewhere between $14,000 and $15,000, but I mean, there's some pretty significant increases for those tuition fees and transportation costs. Another thing that you're going to see decrease in is lines associated with our NEAS accreditation process. This year is our collaborative conference. We'll have a small group of individuals coming here to Belmont in the spring of this year. And the year after next, the spring of 2028, is our decennial visit. It's our big group that comes in and establishes our accreditation process. So next year, there is no visiting team who comes to us. They basically almost give us a progress report this year, and we have a year to implement some things and consider what it is that we need to do prior to 2027-28. So that number will be up for the 27-28 budget, because we have to have transportation again for the visiting team members and things like that. But you see some drops in that. Some of the increases, the ban on personal communication devices has had a little bit of an impact on some of the things that teachers have and students do with the mask. Our teachers are being very diligent about not allowing phones, any kind of personal communication device in the classroom setting, which is in accordance with the law. But things like microscope cameras were requested by the science department, because the Chromebooks that tried to use those and they just don't work with the cameras on them, are not quality enough to actually get any of that to incorporate some of the images that you're seeing in the lab reports. So I also put a little bit of money in for new equipment, $1,000. We have classes that teachers haven't even really considered all that much yet, because they're second semester courses, and they've never taught those courses without the students being able to utilize personal communication devices at their discretion. So, building a little bit of money in for that, if teachers realize, we didn't even think about this, but we're going to need it for next year. Also, trying to upgrade some of our lighting and sound equipment that we use for dances, for our theater production, things like that. That hasn't gotten a whole lot of attention in recent years, so we're trying to help out bring some of that in as well. But outside, those are kind of my highlights, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
How many students you have right now?
It's just under 350. I think as of today, it's 340.
So you're similar to the middle school, aren't you?
Yeah.
But the budget in general is just a lot larger. So they're at 131 and yours 619.
You'll see that's in both. That's our CTE tuition to go to the Hewitt.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The municipal and technical center.
The in-building requests by departments probably are fairly close, but we have some programming that is only specific to our level.
I forgot to ask the other schools, but in the high school and middle school and BES are the only ones that have assistant principals. Can you real quick give an understanding what is the separation between your job and an assistant principal?
Between two jobs. Number one, the size of the school. So clearly those three schools are much larger than CES. So the size particularly is why CES doesn't necessarily have an associate principal. However, if you talk to Mrs. Chubb, she'd be more than happy to have an associate principal. But I'll let Matt answer your question about the difference between the two jobs.
I mean, it varies a little bit here or there. Sandville is one of our evaluators in our building. She's primarily the person who we go to for disciplinary procedures or attendance procedures first. But she and I partner on a lot of things on the administrative level. And I believe that's similar at the other buildings as well. Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Attendance and discipline. it sounds
Yeah,
like.
but the pay discretion?
Yeah, I worked 260 days. The associate principal contract is 220. So it's a full year position versus not quite a full year position.
You brought up something that maybe you talked about equipment for dances, and this might be a buildings and grounds question, but I had heard that there was a dance in the parking lot because they didn't want to damage the floors of the gym. Do we have coverings for those floors?
We usually use the cafeteria.
Okay.
So when we have events outside, or at the professional group was calling it, they wanted to do something outside and do something different. But no, we use the cafeteria. We actually have a Halloween dance that's private.
So there's no concerns about the gym floor?
We don't use the gym floor for events like that.
It actually is recommended not to use the mats on the gym floor because any debris such as gravel or anything that comes out, it gets underneath the mats and people stand on, step on the mats and it grinds into the floor. So we've got a way to use the mats on the floor.
Can you talk about robotics class was added to the budget?
Yeah, so we don't just have a robotics club, so we added robotics. But the budget line last year, we added that after we had established the budget. So we didn't have that in our budget in the past. With a real conscious effort to disaggregate any of the equipment and supplies that we use, like well, there's a budget class. The class needs some equipment.
She teaches different types of robotics too, right? She does like all sorts of like underwater one.
Yeah, it talks about all kinds of different programming. To some degree, it's a little bit of a survey course too, conceptual, robotics.
Yeah, I do remember it was added after
we
passed the budget. Yeah. Thanks.
On the page 7, I'm not sure if you spoke of this already, but the conference and travel for VHS principal, last year it went up to 5,000. And then he's gonna go up a little bit more. Before it used to be $1,600, around $1,700. What was it that changed?
So this covers both the principal and the associate principal. In the past, the associate principal wasn't taking advantage of the statewide conference. However, a few years ago, our associate principal started taking advantage of that, which I highly recommend as a form of professional development, stay up with the trends. So that's where you saw the increase.
So what is it, registration fees?
Yeah, it's not only registration for conferences, but also any kind of overnight stays and things like that.
Because they're usually at the full-day conferences.
Yeah, some of them are one day, some of them are multiple. The end of year New Hampshire Association for Principal Leadership Conference, which is one that it's great. We have somebody of our administration and district budget and give us opportunities to collaborate and doing that. There's a couple of days, so there's sort of double combinations of days and
And this any other conference that the principal or associate principal wants to attend as part of this line.
Question for, I'm assuming we'll have at a meeting, or budget meeting later on. Is there any way that we can get the breakout to Hewitt for semester 1, semester 2? We were given a list of all the courses and all the students. I'm just kind of curious if we can see the what the difference is between semester one.
The enrollments?
Yes.
It's almost identical. Most of those are year-long.
Oh,
Right.
okay, that's, okay, I thought that it wasn't year long.
No, most of the courses are year-long. There's a few intro courses that are semester-long, but most of our students are year-long participants.
Is that the same for both one as well?
Yes.
And if anything, it might be if somebody moves out, it might be a 1 or 2 student difference.
Right, no, I was under the
Very,
assumption
very
that they
close.
were running on semester long.
So the increase in the tuition for VOCAD, can we assume that that's because of the new offerings that went on? That we have a few more things or just more kids?
Combination of things, we have more kids, and the state is not paying as much towards VOCAD as they used to, because the state is supposed to spend a certain amount. We're supposed to pay 20% of a quarter of their tuition, but the state is only responsible for the amount up to what the state budgets. And because we can't turn kids away from going to any tech centers, the tech center can say, no, we're full, but we can't deny kids to go. So because more kids are going, the state has less money to send, so we always get a bill following year to cover what the state didn't cover the previous year. So part of that is to try to absorb some of that.
Did we have more kids? Do
More
we have
kids have
kids
been
take up
going,
those new programs offered in
Yeah,
this program?
we're one of the biggest sending schools to both the Hewitt and this year too, but Joint Up Career Center and used to be with the ACT. We have a really good relationship with both of those.
We haven't had kids going to this one for a while with the new programs they're offering. We are.
And a couple of years ago, a law had passed that we're no longer able, districts are no longer able to cap their CT enrollments.
What are the new programs that went on?
Cosmetology and precision engineering, precision machine shop work. And we have students who are participating in both of those at the career centers, as well as the other programs that existed previously. But the redesign of the facility there is a lot of attention. So, students participating in programs that they could have participated in the last few years, but they want their cool new building, and it does look great. They did a really, really good job.
And we're no longer tied to just Laconia and Winnisquam. If they don't offer a program that a student wants to take, we have to pay. So if they want to go to Concord, because Concord offers a program, we have to pay the Concord tuition for the vote.
Do we transport them?
No.
And can you explain again how the state determines how much they pay? There was some kind of...
So let's take Laconia. So for the Hewitt Center, it takes their cost per pupil, and the vocational tuition is 25% of their cost per pupil. Of that amount, the district is automatically responsible for 20% for the tuition. The state would pick up the remaining 80%. Statewide, when all of the voc centers' bills are sent into the state, if all of the bills come in, and the bills come in at, say, $10 million, and the state only has $8 million in their budget, they kick back the $2 million and say, okay, you have to bill out to the sending districts. So then we get a supplemental bill, because the state doesn't have enough money to cover the tuition.
Yeah.
Tens of thousands, like?
Over 100,000 sometimes.
Yeah, because currently it's about 70 students that go, right? And it looks like it's increasingly going up in numbers.
Yep.
So how much of ahead of time does the school district know how much the state is going to have?
We don't know until the year after.
Okay.
So I got a bill last April, this past April, to cover the prior year, after I'd already closed the books. Because the state doesn't calculate and send it out until February or March. And then the receiving district has to go through and do calculations to determine how much each of the sending districts owe. So because we have a large percentage of our students that go, we get a large percentage of that bill. But we can't say no to kids.
is there, I don't, I haven't read up on it, but is there a potential that in the near future, there might be a reduction on the state side? How much it contribute? Is there anything we can do to prepare the fact that the numbers keep increasing from the high school? You have 70 students that go, and there's less people in the school during that time. I know it's not all at the same time.
Yeah, it's statewide, so there's no way to predict what the state has in their budget versus what they're gonna have to pay out. I mean, I know what they'll have to pay out, it's whatever's in their budget, but I don't know what the total bills that are gonna be coming in are.
And they don't all still vacate the school at the same time. There's more, there's a morning section and an afternoon section.
Three different times.
Right.
Three?
Yeah. And our second run time, so Hewitt, we send 3 different runs buses. The Hewitt, we still have a small enough number of students that we just have one bus that goes there, and it's middle of the day programming, so they leave at the same time as our second Hewitt bus. They get back at about the same time.
Other questions?
Thanks.
Thank you. So, we have budget development on the schedule, the agenda for next week, our regular board meeting. We'll probably do a board meeting with town officials. So we'll probably do that first. And then we'll do the budget development right after that. I guess I'm looking for some feedback, maybe Michael is too, on what we want to talk about next week. So we have the information.
Yeah, I thought tonight was great. I wish I ate dinner first, but I thought tonight was really helpful and great to really kind of look through things. When I add up all the amounts that were talked about tonight, and I divide it from the whole budget, that's like 11.6% of the budget. So like, I know there's salaries and stuff, but because I'm new to this, like, where's the other percentage? Where can I go in this binder to find out about, that was a lot of time for 11.6% of the budget. So I also want to look at the other part. So where's that? In this
Over
binder?
80% of our budget is salaries and benefits.
It is, it's all salaries and benefits. Okay.
And about 7.6 million is going to be the health insurance, right? With the 15% estimate increase?
Yes, so that came close to $1 million of an increase based on a 15% estimate for health insurance.
Yeah, because tonight was like 3.6 million, plus or minus, but the overall budget is like 31 million. So it's a lot of millions. So it's salaries and benefits.
Salaries, benefits, transportation costs.
Retirements.
Well, that's part of the benefits, yeah. So typically what I do is I'm preparing for the public hearing, I'll do a pie graph and show what percentage salaries and benefits, what percentage contracted services, what percentage supplies, and typically 80 to 82% is salaries and benefits.
Okay.
So look, somebody has done this for many years. One of my frustrations is we go through this, right? We meet with all the administrators and we nickel and dime to $250.
Yes.
It's such a small percentage of the budget that it's important. We should pick through it, but it's also 10%.
Yeah.
So I just direct you back to that summary sheet that I provided last Tuesday. So of the as of tonight, the $1.7 million increase, that's 6.2% of those operating budget. 1.6 of that are contractual increases. And that's really an eye opener to think about.
Just to confirm, the meeting next week is at BES, not CES, on October 28th. It looks like, so according to this, we go to BES.
Hey, look at the calendar.
Yeah.
Oh, is that right?
Where's CES?
That should be CES.
Since 28th?
Yes.
It's here.
Wow. Okay, I would have been in the wrong place.
And then next month, they're in Belmont.
So I heard earlier in the night, Michelle. Oh, right.
Okay, for building supplies, I won't be here next week. I'll be called to our conference, so it's not.
Well, hard copy for your binder. So my takeaways, the requests this evening are prioritize the building improvements outside of CIP items, as well as a list of items, grounds, because other than landscaping. Those are the two requests that I have this evening.
And real quick here, the healthcare story can be delved into until next year with the CBA, or is that something we can change this year when it
Not
comes
with-
to the benefit?
We could change that with the union. But we have a portion that is not part of the union. But I'm not sure what you mean.
Yeah,
You're talking about switching providers?
yeah, I'm looking at another way of insuring it, because I believe it's gonna be $7.6 million of a health insurance cost for everybody for this year, next year.
That 15% increase?
Yeah.
on top of that?
I'm not sure other districts are getting better increases with other providers either.
Or other methods.
So that kind of led me in, so after we were proposed the makeup payment that we're gonna have to do, and that's with, is that school, where was school?
School care.
Okay. So my understanding, and I could be wrong when I kind of dug into it, school care, the way that it's written within the legislation, they have the ability to ask for additional money, but the health trust, they don't have the ability to ask for the additional money the way that healthcare did. And if that is correct, should we or could we be, should we be looking at the possibility of changing?
So that's not correct.
Okay.
What Health Trust did is they have some additional reserves, but they are increasing their rates that they're applying, are adding a percentage to recoup reserves.
Okay, so they're in the same boat.
So they're in the same boat. They have higher reserves in school care at the moment.
Yeah.
But they're recouping reserves through rate increases
Versus a one-time payment.
versus a one-time.
Okay, all right.
So it's incorporated in whatever the new rates are that have been issued.
Not advocating this, but just to follow up on what Edgar was saying, I don't know if this is clear, but you do have the option to change the percentage of what we provide.
For support staff
For
and
support staff.
non-affiliated, yes.
Now, and then the union, if we were to open negotiations, which is probably not do, or when the contract's not negotiated.
Right, I think he specifically is saying, can you use a different provider for those that are outside of the union?
I guess I'm saying there are other options as
There
well.
are other options, yes. There are some districts that use two different, they use both school care and health trust, depending on which group they have.
What is the support staff percentage?
So we pay 95% of a single, 90% of a two-person, and 80% of a family. I'm sorry, 85% of a family. And they have the school care yellow plan with choice. So that's a less expensive plan than the green plan or the red plan that the teachers have.
So, Michael has a few things. We need ideas and thoughts or opinions on what we should talk about, otherwise I just doing out our house.
And we were given the class numbers, and I was looking at those over the weekend. I don't know if we should engage in conversation of whether or not things are appropriate early on. If we slide that off the table, then we won't surprise ourselves or anybody else if we try to discuss it later on.
I know that I don't want to see a repeat of last year. So if anyone does want to make significant cuts, I would like to see them come to the table with what they want to cut, instead of just sitting here not saying anything.
I was going to say the same thing. Having to facilitate that last year was not something I wanted to do again, with Sean, because I'm all for looking at this, talking through, I already gave some suggestions, but just looking at each other and saying we need to reduce the budget doesn't get us anywhere. I mean, I'm just saying we have to have a conversation and like dive into it and look into it, and then
I would like to see these conversations happen sooner, rather than later, so that the public does have the opportunity to come provide their input and not wait till the last minute.
I know it's late, I don't want to hold everybody on that, but I'm uncomfortable with the percentage increase as it is. And I know that it's healthcare, a lot of it's healthcare, and that's not something we can control, but in every household, if we have increases somewhere else, we have to figure out where we're funding it somewhere else. And I don't think we do. I'll just say.
So I was probably going to say this later, but I didn't have on my schedule that it was a work session, but I too will be out of town for work next Monday. So I'll say it now. Tuesday. But actually, I'm out on Sunday through Wednesday. One business trip for you. In our community in Belmont specifically, I haven't looked at the sales in Canterbury, but we are losing a lot of our generational families due to the cost of life. Where older people are selling their homes because they can't afford their taxes, and our 20-somethings can't afford to buy a house. I know the percentage comes from a lot of fixed things, but I'm not super happy with it myself. Probably because I've had my own budget fail 2 years in a row, and it'll fail a third year probably. I also feel our constituents have come forward to us last year with how narrowly the budget passed, that they weren't happy with it. Although the default is higher, so they would probably have to pass it unless they were being just that disgruntled, and there are some, but probably not enough to do that. So, I don't know, I'd like to be able to show people that we're hearing their plight of economic constraint, whether it seems like it's a drop in the bucket, but they see 6.5% and they think, I'm not getting 6.5% more in my household.
So I think this comes back to the conversation that, Jen, you brought it up, that this is 11% of the budget, what we went over today, and this is what we have to play with.
Mm-hmm.
So everything that we talked about tonight directly affects our students, directly affects our buildings, directly affects our administrators, and that's what we have to play with. So what we're talking about, yes, I don't want to bring a 6% budget increase either, but everything that we can play with directly affects those students, these teachers, administrators, everyone in those buildings. So I am going to come back to what Randy and Michelle have said. If there is something that people want to see cut from the budget, bring it. We need to look at it. That's what we need to do. So we can sit here and we can do this all night, but if you have a suggestion, bring it.
Sooner rather than later.
Yes.
Can we talk about, not tonight, but can we talk about the other 87% of the budget? Like, is next week a work session? Like, I think the class sizes might be really great to do in a work session. Just kind of reviewing and brainstorming and talking and. I mean, are we allowed to talk about that other 87%? Or is it like a sacred cow?
Yeah, we can
can't talk about it. Okay.
It's all under a contractual obligation.
Great, so if you're really gonna, if you're gonna do anything about that, then you're breaking into collective bargaining, which is painful, and difficult at best.
I think though, I'll say it, really, some of the biggest options we have are you'd be looking at position cuts.
Yeah, because when Derek came, he saw us with New Hampshire School Association, he said that's the only way you can affect real big budget cuts, is cutting staff. Can we look at Appendix B? Because that thing's huge. Is there ones that aren't being used?
Yeah,
Okay, I was just.
Yeah, so there's an appendix B.
we recommend
For those of us, the four of us down here in particular, who are new to this process, I know how the town, as I sit there and run our meetings, we adjust the budget as the department head sitting there. If somebody wants to make a motion, they do it right then and move on. What's normally your next step?
Next step,
How do you guys set up the
We're
next
gonna
step?
have a conversation, like, for say, go and select the other 87%, which is cutting staff looking at Appendix B, that's what we look at.
Okay.
And then we have a conversation.
Okay.
And then go around and around.
Oh.
Have fun.
Okay.
Discussing it.
I mean, I call it creating efficiencies. Like if there's gap or underutilization, I want to try to create
No, I
better
completely
utilization of
understand.
our
I'm on board.
resources.
I'm just,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what we do next meeting.
Yeah.
If we're asking for class sizes, I want to be very specific what we're asking for, so that we're not.
They're already in our
asking- they're already-
program.
Oh, perfect, there we go.
Under other,
And there are times when the board would say, okay, what would it look like if we brought in a 4% increase? What would it look like if we brought in a 3% increase?
Okay.
So then we figure out what that amount would be, and then the superintendent sits back down again with the administrators and says, all right, what would we have to cut if we're gonna get to this amount? And then brings that list back to the board.
and that never sums up the amount that people potentially want the budget to be cut. And keep in mind, when you add up all of the administrators' requests, they're down $20,000 from this year.
Right,
So
they've already made
the-
cuts, concessions.
The conversation from this point forward is about staffing, potentially delaying projects for our buildings. That's really where you're at. You're outside of other contractual obligations, so.
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily looking to open up any contractual arrangements already made, but I think it's healthy that if there's some analysis or review that's done so that when the next cycle does come up, we can make, if not immediately, then maybe down the road when the next contract cycle comes up, we can make adjustments.
The board starts negotiations with the SRE Association, our Educators Association this summer.
Okay.
For the following year.
Okay.
Transportation contract, we have another 3 years on.
Okay. That's all good to know.
I think a wild card is our health insurance, because I've seen us look at this and then, I don't think this is gonna happen, but health insurance costs have come in a lot lower, which is really helpful. My fear is it's actually higher, even though I know it's based on what they told you.
So, Michael has some stuff for next week. Michelle won't be here, but I think it would make me feel better, time-wise, at the end of the meeting, end of the budget discussion next week, to get a feel for where is everybody on the budget? Are you happy? Do you want it to be lowered? Do you want to increase it? We need to know that, like, by next week at the latest. So, if I don't hear from anybody, I'm going to make the assumption that you're good. I think I'd feel better if I just, Michelle, what do you think? And what do you think? Okay, what do you think, Michelle, what do you think? Go one by one. Say, how do you feel? Because I don't want to get to December 15th and have somebody go, or have 3 or 4 people go, this cares. Certainly don't want to vote on it.
Well, as a reminder to that, we still won't have health insurance and we won't have revenues, so I won't be able to project any tax rates.
I would like to see, I won't be here, so I'll just, instead of doing that later. I hate even saying it, but I'm gonna say it out loud. Like, if we cut a position at each of the schools, I don't know, what does that do to each school? Like, I don't know how you make, even looking at class size, it doesn't tell me it doesn't tell me what, if we said at the high school, we're cutting, who would you cut and what would be the impact? Middle school, who has small, I'll just focus on the middle and high school, because we have that, there's some really small class sizes, but I don't know what the impact would be. So I know we've had conversations before that you can always justify positions, but I think that if we're gonna dive into this, truly dive into it, we're gonna need to know, like, what is the impact?
So at the high school level, in general terms, you cut a position out of a department, and you increase class sizes for the required classes for graduation, and you eliminate elective offerings.
Right, so I want to know that. I don't want I'll be honest, I don't want generalities, I want to know.
So again, if the board gives me direction.
Right, I'm saying, you guys talk about it, I'm just saying
These
that's.
are the positions we want to see cut, I'll tell you what the impacts are for the next meeting. After that, you say that next meeting, following meeting, I'll let you know what the impact is.
I'm just saying, I don't want to be willy-nilly, like, we're gonna cut 6 positions and we have no idea the impact.
No, I'll definitely make sure you know what that impact is going to be, depending on the position.
And you also need to notify the union that we're having these discussions, right?
Yes, if it's a reduction in force, you have to notify them that the board is contemplating that.
That's a vacant position, you have to know.
No, you're not eliminating the current, somebody that's currently.
How many are there that are currently vacant?
I have vacancy
Just,
listed
there's,
here.
Danielle mentioned that there was one more that was still vacant that she was leaving out.
Right, so if you go into the staffing section, the last page in that section shows our vacancies. Teachers and support staff.
And this one is showing those 2 that you were removing, right?
Yeah, because the board hasn't, like you said, that's what they want to do at this point. That's my proposed operating budget. If they say that's what we want to do, then I'd take them off the vacancy list.
So would you, as a taxpayer, when I found out how many students were enrolled in this district, I was shocked. I thought maybe 2,000 or 3,000, something, but just the 1,000 students, and we're spending this much money, I was flabbergasted, shall I say. And then recently I was looking at maybe our house in Zillow or something that came up, and the great schools ratings came up. And the elementary and middle school were decent, but the high school was rated like 3 out of 5. Have you seen that?
I'm aware of the ratings.
Yes. I think it's based on, isn't it, the amount of graduates that go on to college and other factors like that?
Their factors vary, but most importantly, it's based on your graduation rates as well as the SAT assessments, which is our state assessment.
So do you think it's all based on COVID and the negative impact of COVID or other factors?
I think I said earlier, if I had that match game ball or the, if I could look into the purpose and I
Well,
can't
for
tell you
example,
that right now.
I think you've been here, what, about 6, 7, 8 years in
Maybe.
this district?
Maybe I'm in my 9th year.
Yeah. Have you seen the SAT scores drop dramatically?
Have I seen them drop? I do not take the SAT scores into account when I assess the success of our students coming out of this district. It's about how they can articulate what their path is when they come out, make sure that they are successful in that path. I don't think all of our students take our SAT tests or even our lower grade standardized tests at heart. Those don't be new to them in order to do so. So I don't think those scores are accurate when it comes to what our kids know and are able to do. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I would say, I've been on the board, I don't know how many years, but we always looked at the percentage of kids that went on to higher ed, 2 years, 4 years. We did that 16 years ago. And that has changed so dramatically in this time where, like Michael said, like, we have 100% of, we have an idea of 100% of those graduates. That's pretty good. Whether they're going straight into the workforce, whether they're going to 2-year program, or military, or 4-year program, they were able to articulate every one of those graduates what their plan was. And that's pretty successful to me, which is a lot different than where we were.
Unfortunately, those ratings are based on outdated data and the importance of that data. They just haven't changed it for years. I'm sorry, no, thank you.
So is next week, what is the goal for next week? Is it still like open what we discussed, or do you have something figured out?
Well, we're going to go over what Michael provides. My biggest takeaway next week is to get a feel for where are we as far as what we're going to do. Because if 5 out of 7 people aren't comfortable with a 6 point whatever, then that next meeting is going to be tough.
And some direction given to me as to what you want to see.
We have to have a direction by the end of next week.
So
Just keep in mind,
for those of us that aren't gonna be there, I can't offer what that would be without his information. I will say one of my takeaways from this and our discussion is if we're looking at possible reduction in forces or in hard cuts, I have a really hard time standing behind a full-time athletic team. I just think that is, if we're able to meet what we have to by the NHIAA, and I have firsthand experience that how quickly the Belmont Fire Department can get there in the need of a medical emergency, we should do that and it would be great if we could offer it, but I don't think we could do that and then also say we're looking at, even have people who are hearing us now talk about this, say that we're thinking about that, but we're gonna leave this in the budget. I wouldn't want to stand behind that.
So Tracy, my process is look at anything that was new added to the budget and try to maintain what we currently have.
Yeah.
When we start talking about cuts, so
Yeah.
that would definitely be on the list that would take into consideration before I go with classroom teachers. So,
And then the other information I can't speak to yet, since I won't get to see it until afterwards.
Can't project what your thoughts would be on something.
Nope.
In the advisory committee, it's only advisory, we don't have to vote on it, so be aware of that too.
We still value your opinions.
Yes.
Very much so. And just so you know, the first item on the agenda, Sean alluded to this next week, is a joint meeting with town officials, which are both board of selectmen in both towns. So, if you're a little late to the meeting, or you want to be part of that or be here for that conversation, but our budget conversation is not going to start right at 6 o'clock. Just so you know.
All right, anything else on the budget? All right, real quick, we did have public communication, correspondence from public. All right, nothing on. Okay. Roll call vote. All right. Motion, Chuck. I made the motion. Second one.